And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, yeah.
Attention to roll call.
That's right. Good morning, 8:05 live Eastern Time, and it's your Friday roundtable. It's good to be here. We got some great content, and the first thing we're going to get into, I'm sure NYPD active guys are excited by it, and the retired guys are like, what's going on over here? So NYPD, the digital overtime pilot program. I guess the overtime program was going so well and so forensically audited in the NYPD that they need to update to a digital overtime program. So, John, let's roll it out. Let's get right into it. Marlon, Friday roundtable, let's do it.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that it's the natural order of things. I think the department's a little bit behind when it comes to submitting overtime. I think, it's being sold right now. It's a pilot program. Pilot program is going to only be in a few commands. So it's going to be the 120 precinct, 120 precinct detective squad, office of the first deputy police commissioner, who oversees the overtime and did a absolutely horrendous job when Jeffrey Madry was the chief of department. And now she's still in charge of the overtime. So her office, personnel bureau, police academy, 120th precinct, 120th precinct detective squad. They're going to do this new pilot program where they're going to have to submit overtime digitally. So recently, Jessica Tisch, NYPD Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch, was at a speaking event, and she said that there was no overtime controls in the NYPD. There was basically none before she came into office, which is a flat-out, bold-faced lie, because there were numerous overtime controls. I mean, they had overtime down to a science. The problem is they just had people with people with no integrity running that program, including the person who continues to run the overtime program, which is the first deputy commissioner. So this is going to be pushed out as, it's going to help us to track overtime better. It's going to help us to eliminate corruption when it comes to overtime. It's going to help us to eliminate useless overtime. In reality, all it's doing is bringing the department up to speed. I don't think it's going to do any of that. Marlon, what's up, brother?
Hey, morning, guys. Morning, chat. I'm gonna agree with you, John, on that. I think. You know what? I think this program was coming for a while now, and just to get the NYPD up to speed on it, on other departments. But just because it was coming, but I don't think this is what they're promoting it to be, like a kind of like a response to all the overtime abuses we've seen months ago, because, as I said yesterday on Sal's show, this doesn't really solve the problem. And that problem is because you have like a bunch of undisciplined guys who are running the department. But again, I think what the media is doing is a little bit of myth building with Tish, and putting her out there as like someone who's bringing order to the department, when we all know, like I said, the real problem wasn't overtime abuse per se. It was abuse by a class of executives that didn't think they have to abide by the same rules that everybody else in the NYPD does.
So this comes at an interesting time, right, where overtime has ballooned out of control, staffing is short, the crisis still continues with mass exodus. And the scare is that if Mamdani becomes mayor, it's going to be even further and get worse. So while this portal is far overdue, it's, especially the digital era, everything's by digital anyway, your phones, internet. If you're an NYPD police officer, everything pretty much is paperless at this point. But the question to me is, does this actually do anything to make it better ordered? Does it actually distribute overtime evenly so that police officers are not exhausted? And to me, at this point, it sounds great. It's a portal. It's a pilot program. That's something that should balloon to the entire department. But unless the root issues of the police department are actually fixed at this point, to me, this is just more window dressing. That's what this appears to be, right? This is supposed to be a pilot portal where overtime can be managed and police officers could have it handed in right away, and it's supposed to be for accountability. Now, there were measures in place for years. Now, I don't think whether it's paperless or not, that changes anything. The ability for the NYPD leadership to manage overtime is an epic fail. And I don't think this makes it any different because it's a digital overtime. Because the question now is, how is it going to be monitored, and who ultimately is going to monitor it? Because we heard the same reaction for Jeffrey Maddrey when the scandal was public, and he claimed that he was not responsible, and yet he is responsible. So does that change anything now? Now, in that operations order, it says that it has to be signed by a supervisor and a second supervisor. I mean, how many times do these things need to be signed? Is this now going to create more legwork? Is it actually going to be ordered properly? And ultimately, if and we need a new program because of a failure, how do we not hold those that create that failure accountable? And that comes exactly from the first deputy commissioner's office. To me, another epic fail. And this, to me, is just complete window dressing.
Yeah, so like, to be fair, I think that the department needs to do that. I don't see why they're still using these stupid paper slips anymore. I think it could be brought up to speed, but as you both said, I don't think it alleviates any of the problems, because it didn't really come from any issues related to any of the systems in place by the NYPD. It came down to the fact that you had corrupt individuals running the New York City Police Department, and you continue to have corrupt individuals running the New York City Police Department. So, I mean, like, you can make it digital, you can make it paper, you could put all this policy in place, you could have all these checks. When the people don't follow the rules, doesn't really matter, right? So now they're digitizing this, and this order is for anyone under captain, under the rank of captain. So lieutenants, sergeants, and cops, right? And they are the people that get the overtime in the NYPD. So, I mean, there are some captains that make overtime, but they don't account for much of the overtime in the NYPD. So, so now it's saying, you got to submit through this, you got to submit digitally. You submit it digitally. The desk officers are going to consistently review the queue for overtime. Now, again, that's kind of a problem, because you're getting stuff in your queue constantly, and you may or may not even see that person, right? They might not work for you. They might not be on the same tour as you. So you really don't know if they were even there, right? What if you walk into the precinct and your queue is full from guys from the 2 tours before? The other desk officer was busy because they had a shooting, whatever. He never got to sign off on any of that. Right. So now you're going to have that. And then there needs to be 2 endorsements. Right. So meaning you can't just sign both, same supervisor can't sign to approve the overtime, and then can't sign to okay the overtime for payroll to put through. So, I mean, I think that's a stronger check and balance than currently with the paper system. But again, it doesn't really eliminate those inside overtime gigs. It doesn't stop that. Hey, you could still be getting on-duty booty. You could still be getting overtime for sex. None of that's really going away. It all comes down to the fact of who's really overseeing the overtime, the commanding officer in that precinct, and the first deputy commissioner office to actually do their job and manage what's happening throughout the department.
Yeah. We said yesterday that we talked about the fact that Tish, in a lot of ways, doesn't want to rock the boat, and how the COs put up with a lot of nonsense. Okay. And in a lot of ways, they give them leeway, I believe, because they put up with a lot of nonsense. And it's to encourage guys to go up the ranks, and take on that burden. And I think, though, in the absence of setting down real disciplinary measures for the top, what this system is actually going to do is maybe even centralize the overtime more between the guys who are doing the work on the street and the guys in those protected details or who are protected cronies of 1PP. So I don't think having 2 endorsements, to me, I don't think it's going to really matter on that, because, I mean, so what if Maddrey gives out this on-duty booty overtime, So what? His XO has to sign off on it too. What doesn't make a difference? Yeah. There needs to be like real disciplinary measures at the top for any sort of system in the NYPD to work, whether it's a physical system, or it's one that's now being run digitally and being managed on a computer. And in the absence of that, I don't think you can have 5 signatures on that. It doesn't matter, because the people who are going to abuse the overtime are going to continue abusing the overtime, whereas the plebs in the precincts are going to do what they've been doing all along. And that's because there's been numerous oversight measures anyway for overtime in the precincts.
So good morning. Rob Lucash, Finest Unfiltered Family, makes a great comment. This is actually something I was going to get into. This is exactly spot on. Whether it's paperless or not, there were always 2 endorsements: supervisor front on the, and also your CO or XO on the back after the timekeeper entered it, right? So ultimately, it was a 3-step checks and balance when it came to overtime by paper, right? Once supervisor signed it, it was then verified the CO or the XO after the timekeeper checked it out, right? So supervisor signed it, it went to the timekeeper for them to verify it, put it in the system, ensure that you get paid, and then the CO or XO actually submits it so it's on file. So that was actually a 3-step process. So whether it's paperless or digital, it doesn't change anything. And that's why I agree with you, Marlon. It doesn't matter if it's 5 supervisors, 10 supervisors. It's how is the program implemented to actually ensure a supervisor observation. So for the desk officer to look at a queue in light of what John was saying is absolutely spot on. How is the desk officer supposed to know if you were actually there for that tour? The desk officer bogged down with a lot of other managerial duties, responsible for what's going on in the entire command, looking at the working the desk, looking at the crime, the crime complaints on the computer, and then to verify someone's overtime. I don't even understand the point of it going by the desk. It should be the immediate supervisor for that detail or any work that you did, because that supervisor can verify you did the work, and then that supervisor should then put it either to the XO or maybe to the administrative lieutenant, who can actually do a check, look in the roll call where you're actually working, present for that work. So this function has to actually make sense. So on the surface level, yes, it's not something necessary that we've always should have for years because of this digital era that we've moved into. But I don't think this changes anything. It doesn't change anything other than being paperless. And if this is a big step and a big success for the NYPD, it shows how far behind we are. Because the process that we had in place before should have worked, right? According to the first deputy commissioner at the time, who testified to the city council, that they have checks and balances and they do biweekly meetings. So now what I'm curious about also is, does this pilot program by digital means allow the upper management to do an audit and see how is the overtime being distributed in a precinct? Is it being distributed evenly? Is it being favored to anyone particularly? So I'm curious about that also. But as far as what I could see right now, other than it being just paperless, I don't see any big changes.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing that this changes is that the overtime the information gets to more accurately to the first deputy commissioner's office. That's it. It's more accurately. It's in a more timely manner. That's it. Like there's nothing else that it really changes. I mean, the overtime procedures were in place. That's why Jessica Tisch said that she put overtime controls into place, but she never told you what they were, and she never told you what the failures were, because there weren't any, because the failure was the integrity of the people running the New York City Police Department. Eric Adams' cronies, Eric Adams' buddies. They were handing it out like it was their own money, So that's it. They're in the chat this morning. Welcome, fellas. Juju wants to know how Eric's background remains the same while he's traveling around. Juju, you got to listen. You don't listen, bro. We're not even going to get into it. You're so dumb. You're so dumb. You're asking like the most ridiculous question. You don't even realize it. You idiot.
Just keep in mind, John, this potentially could be someone running the police department.
No, yeah, it's definitely someone around the police department. He's in between making a video right now. He's probably out somewhere making a video. So, and then speaking of integrity, we had a 26-year-old officer, David Carrasco, 6-7 precinct, arrested. He's being charged with, according to the Daily News, he's being charged with petty larceny, along with criminal possession of a stolen property for having a stolen license plate on his vehicle. The officer was recently just assigned to the 6-7 precinct from the 6-0 precinct. So a lot of people, I posted it online. A lot of people are like, oh, that's not the story. That's not you guys, blah, blah, blah. What's the story? What's the story? You drove to work with a stolen plate on your car. What's the story? Did they false arrest you? Call us up. Let us know. Is the police department false arresting people? Was the plate stolen or was the not plate stolen? I don't know how they charged them with the petty larceny, right? Because I don't know what happened. We don't know the intricate details of what that arrest took place. And this is my opinion, but my opinion is that he didn't drive to the precinct one time with a stolen plate. That's my opinion. I think that he was showing up with a stolen plate on his car over and over again. I don't have any proof of that. I don't know that to be true. But I mean, I don't know even how this sparks, how this came about. But I'm going to assume that stolen plate was there and this investigation was over the course of a week. For them to have, or longer, for them to have charged them with the petty larceny. Because why would they hit you with petty larceny? If you, let's just say you were driving your girlfriend's car and you had no idea. And you had a stolen plate on your car. You were driving your girlfriend's car, your boyfriend's car. You had absolutely no idea. I don't know. I trust this person. You know, you go to work, cops lock you up. Why are they charging you with petty larceny? You can be like, I had no idea. I didn't know. I had no idea. I didn't know it wasn't my car. I drove it. It's my boyfriend's car. It's my girlfriend's car. All right. Well, you're still committing the crime of criminal possession of stolen property, which is the stolen plate. You're still driving an unregistered, uninsured vehicle. If in fact the car is unregistered, uninsured. So I don't know what the story is, but again, where's the integrity? 26 years old. So 3 years on the job.
Yeah, I don't know what to think of this story, John, because I mean, let's forget about the fact that he's doing something. I mean, he's a perp right now. Okay, forget about the fact that he's doing something that's illegal. It's something also the sheer stupidity of it. You're driving a vehicle. You're driving around with stolen plates on a vehicle. I mean, you don't think you're gonna get caught in this day and age? I mean, driving to a precinct, for God's sake. I just don't understand this. I mean, what he didn't think the plate readers are gonna pick him up, or the ICO who back in when I was in the precinct, the ICO would walk around our personal vehicles, and they were doing the checks for the this was when the department was going hard on like tints on your window. So when I would get to work, I still had dark tints on my car back on the other side, because I didn't want to hear anything about it. So I don't understand. I don't understand the sheer stupidity of this now. There's got to be. I think there's got to be some sort of context that we're missing here, because I can't understand how a cop with 3 years on doesn't have an understanding of all these systems in place. And I mean, never mind doing something as dumb as that. So but as we'll see later on, guys, that's not the only dumb thing that's happened this week by NYPD cops, and I have to ask, is it might be all the pressure that's going on, or all the hours that these guys are working. I just don't understand the reasoning for any of this.
So the question with this is, why was this probe actually implemented? Why was his plate actually looked into? Was it a tip? What sparked this, right? So what John mentioned earlier about driving around with that plate, I would assume, same thing. We're missing a lot of context, a lot of information about this case we don't know. But I would assume that this is going on for a period of time, right? Because what are the elements that you need for petty larceny and criminal possession stolen plate? Criminal possession stolen property. For one, for petty larceny, there would have to be reason to believe that you actually stole those plates, and then to be charged with criminal possession of stolen property, you would actually have to be driving around with those plates because you're now in possession of stolen property. What's the key element when it comes to criminal possession of stolen property is that you knowingly are aware that these are stolen goods and you are utilizing them to your own benefit, right? That's the culpability for a crime and probable cause. What's probable cause? Just reason to believe you commit that crime. So there's reason to believe that this police officer took this item, which is a plate, and then drove around this plate knowingly aware that it's stolen goods, which makes the elements of the two charges, pennant larceny, criminal possession of stolen property, which is what would be applied for stolen plates. So I would assume this is not just a one-time incident, because of course that could happen to any one of us. Hey, your buddy lets you use his car, or someone else lets you use the car. I can tell you right now, if someone, and people have let me use their car before, I'm sure you all have done it. Same thing for friends and listeners on the chat. I highly doubt we look at the plate and run it anyway, because according to the police department, you would not have that opportunity either. You're not allowed to do that, right? You can't take a car from a girlfriend and say, you know what, let me go run the plate to make sure it's okay. That would be misuse of a computer. Now, Juju and his friends understand misuse of a computer because they do it quite often when they do research on John, myself, Marlon, Sal, Ron, and Rob. That's what they do quite often. But you're not supposed to do that. You can't just arbitrarily take it upon yourself to actually do the research on a plate. So the fact that he was charged with this, to me, says that this is going on for quite some time, and it may be part of a bigger sting or probe into something else. That's what I would like to know. So a lot of information missing here that we have not been apprised by yet. So we have to see what comes out of this.
Yeah, I put out a post and I said this is a result of lowering standards to meet DEI quotas, and I got jumped on by everybody. Oh my God, how do you know this officer wasn't white? I'm like, I sounds like he was white to me. I'm like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know what he looks like, but the name sounds like he's Italian to me. So I was like, I think that he's considered a white guy in the NYPD. So I was like, and the reason I said that is like, I'm like, we've lowered standards in the NYPD. We've lowered the amount of criminality like that you could get into the NYPD with more criminality. We said that you could actually, I'm hearing that you could get through the academy as long as you no longer have marijuana in your system when you enter the academy. Like, so you could like have smoked weed before you actually take the drug test, fail the drug test, and still wind up becoming a police officer. And that was a thing that never happened in the past. So we lowered that. We lowered the standards. We lowered the physical standards. And as a result of that, what we said 3 years ago and came to fruition, you're going to see more corruption scandals from younger cops. You're going to see more dumb things and more crime come out of the police department. Because I don't understand like why I get jumped on when I mention DEI. The only people that jump on me when I bring it up are white libs, like really wealthy white libs, highly educated white libs, or black people. And I'm like, I didn't take a shot at a black person. I took a shot at hiring people based upon race. And in order to meet diversity goals, you're going to lower standards, and you're lowering standards for everybody. So that doesn't mean that, oh, you just lowered standards and now we have all these unqualified black people there. No, it's like we have all unqualified white people, Asian people, white people. Not to say that everyone that comes through is unqualified, but once you start opening that floodgates, now people are going to look at you. Are you guys qualified to do that job? Are you qualified to fly that plane? Are you qualified to be a police officer? And I'm going to sit there and say right now, if you have 3 years on the job and you're driving around with a stolen license plate, probably not qualified to be a police officer. Who are you hanging out with? Who are you associating with? What else is going on in your life?
Yeah. So as long as you're vaxxed, though, you just got to make sure you're vaxxed. All right. So I'm gonna say, Eric made a point about running the license plate. Now, I've talked about this before offline that we all have family members that do stupid things. So if I happen to borrow a car from a family member, and I something wrong, something happened to my car, I needed a car immediately, and that person is, I think that person may be irresponsible in their life a little bit. I'm gonna actually run the plate, with the department's computers. I'm gonna do it because I'd rather, run it and find out myself than, being surprised when I get pulled over or the ICO checks the plate. So I would personally just run it. I may just go tell the ICO, hey, look, I borrowed my son's, my family member's car, and they do stupid things. So I just wanted to make sure that everything was squared off. I don't think that's really a big deal. But now, just to go back on what John said, I absolutely believe that they've lowered standards in trying to get people into the door, and from just looking at a lot of these stupid decisions, I think they've also lowered just the level of common sense that these young guys have now. Because common sense would tell you if you're driving something that you think is not squared off, you should do your diligence and make sure that that thing is squared off before you actually continue driving it. So I think 100% they've lowered standards, and if you're gonna, the job has had trouble filling seats before, and what we've said many times on the show, you're not going to get the most qualified people with all the problems the job has right now, and all these other jurisdictions offering a lot more, like a better quality of life and offering signing bonuses. You're really not going to get the best qualified candidates. And what I'm seeing in a lot of posts online is that a lot of retired members of service have their kids are going to join like out of state sheriff's departments and out of state departments. And that's one of the signs to me that, we're no longer getting qualified people, because, you want, we talk about nepotism and how we don't like it. But I think, and I've said this before, that a guy who's had his grandfather as a cop, his father as a cop, he's come from a family of cops. In a lot of ways, that guy might be more acclimated to the job. It'll become easier for him to come on the job because he's kind of more acclimated with the culture and what's expected of him. And the fact that I think we're not seeing a lot of that is one of those signs that you're not getting the best candidates right now. So in order to fill those seats, the job is lowering standards. And again, by these stupid decisions we're seeing here, the job is also lowering the metrics for common sense, to get on this job.
There's no doubt in my mind, and I think that we've explored the evidence numerous times on different facets when it comes to NYPD recruitment and also retention, that standards have been lowered. Some want to argue whether they've been lowered or not, but we can't argue have standards been changed. Here's a great comment from Ron Lace, another Finest Unfiltered family member. And he was in candidate assessment himself. And he says, you can actually get hired with a positive marijuana test the day before entering the academy. Think about that. You have to sign a waiver to retake the Dole test 30 days into the academy. So I don't know when that was implemented. Ron, if you could let us know when that was implemented. But whether you agree with marijuana or not, and I have my own opinions, I think that there's a lot of good about marijuana. It's helped a lot of veterans who have PTSD and people with trauma and people with illnesses, and I think there's a lot of good about it. However, we can't argue that the standards have changed or not. They have changed because there was a time when John and myself and Marlon, Sal, and Ron and Rob entered the NYPD, and you could not have marijuana in your system. You could not be a marijuana smoker. You could admit to possibly trying it a few times in your life, but there would have to be distance from that time you had marijuana, maybe something as a kid from the time that you're a police officer. So while some say the standards have lowered or not, we cannot argue the standards have changed. That is a different standard. The standard what Ron Layson put out is a different standard from before. So there is no argument that the standards have changed. The standards of the hiring practice before have changed and made it much different. Obviously, this allows people that have closer proximity of marijuana use to hiring much different than the responsibility we had. Because when we got on the job, you couldn't have marijuana within a close time period of getting on the job. So I don't know, Ron, when that was implemented, quite interesting. I think that I don't think, and I think a lot of great things about marijuana. I have to admit, I do. But I don't think, and I think there's a time and place for everything. But I think as a police officer, it's not something that you should be taking as, because as a police officer, you have a lot of responsibility. I mean, you shouldn't be a heavy drinker either, even though that's legal. But I do believe that we can't argue that the standards have changed.
Yeah.
I don't think that cops, I don't think anybody should be touching this type of marijuana that's out now. Honestly, it's chemical garbage. There's been a lot of it really is like a psychoactive thing now. I mean, consistently, I live not too far from a firehouse. They're pretty friendly with the guys, and they tell me how many like working class, like normal dads, like will eat a gummy or smoke something and freak out, go a trip to the ER, and like I'm like, did that happen when we were kids? Like, I don't remember that happening. It may have, but I don't think it did. I don't think, and they what they were saying is like not at this rate. They were like, it was once in like every now and then there'd be someone that couldn't handle it, but they were like not like this. There's overdoses. There's people ODing. There's a lot of medical episodes as a result of it. So I mean, nobody should be touching this. And then to let people in the police academy with their system, with it still in their system, is insane. GS Ventures says, and again, we don't know this because I didn't read this anywhere. If you read this somewhere, GS, let us know. He says the cop got arrested because patrol officers got a hit on a stolen plate from the LPR on his vehicle. So for those of you that don't know, it's a LPR is a license plate reader. If you ever see the cop cars and they have like those systems in the back, it looks like cameras hanging off the trunk of the car. Those are LPRs or license plate readers. And they're just constantly running every plate they pass. So plates that are on the street, on parked cars, plates that are in front of them, plates that are coming on the opposite side of them. And so, they'll get a hit. You'll get a hit. Your computer will ding, 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 ding. And now you'll know that there's a car, which is, we used a 16 stolen vehicle. You know that there's a stolen vehicle, or at least the plates are stolen. So, or an unregistered vehicle, a suspension on a registration. So you'll get hits for a couple of different things. So that's what GS Ventures is saying. But again, I just think, how don't you know that as a cop? How don't you know that if you're driving around with a stolen plate, you not only are you getting it, you're going to get hit if a cop car is coming by you, but you're also there's stationed LPR readers across the whole city. We have license plate readers everywhere you are. From the moment you enter New York City to the moment you leave, your plate is getting ran and ran and ran. I could have, when I was in the police department, I could literally go in our system, put your plate in, and I could map out your location by all the LPR hits, by all your license. I would know the route you travel and everything else. So, to be a cop with 3 years on and drive around New York City with a stolen plate on shows me that there's absolutely no training in the police department. Shows me that these kids with 3 years on have no idea what they're doing. There's no fear of supervision. There's no fear of you being arrested. And there's no integrity in the job still currently, even under Jessica Tisch. Yeah, people are getting command disciplines for garbage for going out and doing their job. But when people are actually committing crimes or are acting as skells in their own life, they have nothing to fear. Just don't do anything at work and you'll be okay. If you do something at work and we don't like it, you're going to get a CD. But, you could be a complete skell in your own life, drive around and with stolen plates, and you have nothing to fear. And your cops don't even know how a criminal investigation works, and they feel free and clear. Like, what are you going to do? And if the cop thinks that, like, oh, I'm just going to get pulled over and the cops are going to let me go, I mean, that's probably happened also. It probably happened to him also already. Probably happened already that he got pulled over and got let go. I would have never let him go. I would have locked him up. Why? Because I have integrity, right? It's unbelievable. It really is. It's unbelievable that cops are committing crimes and they don't even realize how easy it is for them to get caught. It just shows. It just shows the level of training there is, the level of knowledge these cops have, and it shows the level of integrity oversight there is. And obviously there's none. Obviously.
Yeah. And by the way, that's the second cop this year that's been arrested, to my knowledge, with driving around with bogus plates. Although the last one was driving around with a bogus plate, and not a stolen one, like in this example. But yeah, I agree with you, John. In a lot of, I might even be more upset that about the stupidity than him being a perp. I mean, if you're a perp, you're a perp. Get him off the job. It is what it is. But just the sheer stupidity of it. I mean, how could you not know that the city has cameras like almost on every block. In fact, I can literally, back in Intel, I could literally track your car from any part of the city all the way down into many states. Many states. It's just a phone call to the fusion centers, and I get your local LPR data from that state or city. So I mean, how could these guys not be trained enough to understand that that the city has so much measures tracking you throughout the city to go ahead and do it. But just to go back on the marijuana thing quickly, I can't believe we're actually here with that, because back in our day, I stopped eating poppy seed bagels just because I was terrified of getting like a just even a false positive at getting tested for marijuana, getting the hair test. So I honestly can't believe we're at that level where it's basically like a level, kind of almost like a level of acceptance to it, So it just goes to show you that we're not, standards aren't getting better; they're actually getting worse, and that is something that it has a lot of long-term consequences,
Going back to stolen plates, Rob Lucas on fire today makes another great point, because New York State, right, to be an NYPD police officer, you have to have a New York address in the 5 boroughs or one of the authorized counties that you can reside in. So you have to have New York plates, right? You can't be a New York City cop and have Vermont plates or outside state. Maybe using one temporarily, but to have a car registered to you has to be New York City. So New York, you have 2 plates, right? And if there's any known information, if you actually took that plate, to be in possession of 1 plate without that information, which should just be considered a lost plate. Remember, we consider that lost property. But if you're in possession, the assumption is if you're in possession of 2, it's now bumped up with petty larceny, right? It's as presumptive that you actually stole those plates. So that's quite interesting, right? Because if someone actually observed this police officer take 1 plate, that would be petty larceny. But if the police officer was in possession of 2, that's an automatic presumptive petty larceny in conjunction with criminal possession of stolen property. So it's also quite interesting to your point, Marlon, about being able to track a plate. I would do it quite often. I know you did also in Intel, but I did it quite often as a special operational lieutenant, tracking cars. And now what's interesting about that is this police officer is acting a fool, because New York is compromised by bridges and tolls, and you can't leave or enter any bridge in New York City without having your picture taken. Your picture is constantly taken. And once you reach below 59th Street in Manhattan, your picture is taken constantly. Anywhere in the 5 boroughs, your picture is taken constantly, whether it's at a toll, a bridge, or very specific locations. That picture is taken constantly. So I'm sure they have that information to even solidify more that this cop was knowingly in possession of stolen property. But to me, it really rings the tone of what the NYPD now is comprised of, and ultimately its failure of leadership. And this is case in point. This is a police officer 3 years on the job, not a veteran, a rookie police officer in this administration, just a complete failure. And I know Ron had said earlier that the standards were not lowered, that they're hiring people without a complete background. Well, to me, that is done intentionally. It's done intentionally to lower the standards because of the mass exodus retention problem. And also, I know, Ron, you might not want to hear this, but John and I say it often. Marlon says it too. And I think that's done on purpose because of DEI, to allow people that normally would not get the job to now get the job because everyone is being included, right? We have a mission. We've heard it from Tanya Meisenholder, 30 for 30 by 2030 to have 30% of females. She talks about getting more people with sexual orientation, different sexual orientations. We've completely emasculated the police department. We've removed the alpha males and alpha females. If anyone wants to challenge that, again, I say take a look at the 7-3 precinct, their recruitment picture in May of this year, about 50 some odd police officers in a full picture in front of the precinct, and there's only 3 white males in a city where it's predominant, where it's 30% white, and then the outside counties that you can reside in are 50% or more. Putnam County as high as 77% white. How do we have that point? Now, I can care less what they look like. I don't care who they sleep with at night. That's not the point. But the point is, if it was done organically, then most likely it would appear to match the population demographics. And we see it's completely off. And that's because of DEI.
Stay Trained Up says, I love my license plate reader. Perps are clueless. Apparently, some cops are too. Cops with 3 years on the job are clueless too. You know, and that's the problem. Like, that's what's happening. You know, that's absolutely the problem. So Charlie Kirk brought this up. In light of this, I posted this because I put out that I said this is a result of lowering standards for DEI, like seeing dumb things like this happening. It's a result of lowered training in the academy. So I put this out, and Charlie Kirk asked a question. He asks if DEI has made any agencies or organizations or anything better. And I asked the same thing of the NYPD. Has, since the time we implemented the Office of Equity Inclusion in the NYPD around 2017, has the NYPD improved its product, or has it gotten worse? And I think we could all agree it's gotten significantly worse. And for some reason, everybody that has a college degree gets very butthurt when this comes up. So listen to what Charlie Kirk said here.
In order to elevate equity, you must compromise excellence. And that's fine if that's your position, because there's only so many spots, there's only so many places. And if you have a lot of qualified people and you want to try to get not as qualified people, you have to prevent the qualified people and elevate the unqualified people. That's what the Students for Fair Admissions case showed us.
You're thinking that DEI is versus excellence. I think DEI is for excellence.
Got it. Show me one institution that got better the more embraced DEI.
One institution that got better that embraced DEI.
That got smarter, more competitive, leaner, more productive, and that was better than it was 10 years ago. Are our airports more efficient? Are we landing planes better? Are our airlines better? Is our government better? Is our schools better? Is our universities better? Show me one example. Is our public health authorities better? Show me one institution that's embraced DEI that has become better, more excellent than it was 20 years ago. It doesn't exist. DEI will destroy an institution from within.
I mean, did he just describe the NYPD?
Yeah. So I think DEI is really, I've said this many times. I think that whole thing is just a psyop, and I think DEI is like a marketing. It's been like high level marketing to make people accept what's really an inflationary and austerity measure, because things aren't getting cheaper. You know, if you want quality cops, you're gonna have to pay for it. Yeah, you're gonna have to pay for it. And the problem is, this city doesn't want to pay for it. They want to get as cheap rookies as they can. If they could pay you $2 an hour to stand on a foot post, they'd do it. Okay, and if we've seen various politicians throughout the state already trying to push for illegal immigrants to do it, because again, they love for you to do it for $2 an hour and not have to pay you a pension for it. And as I've said many times before, I think my situation, and I think I think all our situations are because they need to find ways to get rid of all the most costly people, which are the most experienced senior personnel, and they need to do it and replace us with the cheap guys who not only do they come cheap, but they'll listen to everything you say and they won't question it. I think DEI hasn't helped because DEI is a means to lower costs by getting these people in, and when it's kind of a way to make that acceptable to the public. Because if you told the public, oh, listen, we need more cops in the academy, but we can't pay them a livable wage, so we're gonna have to lower our standards. If you told people that, right? If you told them that we're gonna allow people who wouldn't qualify to be cops years ago to become cops, they'd be like, no, I don't agree with that. No matter which side of the aisle they are, nobody would agree with that. But if you phrase it under DEI and you use these marketing tactics, really, which is what they are, you kind of make make the public accept it, because you're appealing to their you're appealing to kind of like their innate humanity and innate emotions, and it hasn't helped police departments because it's not meant for them. It's meant to cut costs for the city. So,
John, first of all, I want to say that was great that you captured that clip from Charlie Kirk. And the reason why I was so excited by that clip before we even decided to talk about it today, because to me, it gave a true verdict to what I've been saying for years, especially since 2018. And to me, it puts prudence in the fact that at the time, I thought it was isolated to the NYPD, but especially now in retirement, looking at it, realizing this was not just a national thing, but it was globalized. And what Charlie Kirk said that really validated for me is that DEI, the problem with DEI is that there is a complete dichotomy, right? Dichotomy of organic suitability and DEI is actually, it's forced. And what he said is so true because I go back to this quite often. And I remember being by the desk. The cop saying to me, you know what, boss? We had a bunch of new recruits. Look around. He's like, they hire just anybody. And I remember I said, nope. They're looking for a specific type. They want meek, timid, and docile. And in order to get those cops, you actually have to weed out the cops that are qualified, right? Because if we get alpha white males, alpha black males, in any race, we show any signs of being an alpha, and also for women, you're not getting the job. That means that you're qualified. They have to find a way to disqualify you. So what he said is that they're forcing and they're tipping the scale. So that was spot on. So they have to disqualify those that are qualified and qualify that those are disqualified to tip the scales. And I think that was so powerful if you actually listen to it. And it really, to me, solidified, John, when you put out that clip. I said, wow. Not realizing it, almost a decade ago, what I was saying to myself was not just isolated to the NYPD. This is something that was going on globally. And you see it. And that's the part where it does so much damage. It's because the people that are qualified is we have to suppress them. And the people that are disqualified, we have to find ways to manipulate the system to get them in. To what Ron's point earlier, I would have to say that we can't even argue that means the standards were lowered. And that means that it's not organic and it's artificial. And anything artificial in life is not good for you, right? Same thing when you go out there and you eat products that are organic. That's what's good for you because it's natural. It's not something that has to be injected. But when you're eating stuff that's artificial, it's not good for you. That's what's going on here. Organic and its suitability for the NYPD is not happening. This is being forced. It's artificial. And we see the product right now. We see police officers being arrested. We see police officers being probed. We see police officers with mental health issues because they're not qualified. And the byproduct and the outcome is there. And if anyone wants to argue and say you don't see a difference, then I just think you're lying to yourself.
Yeah, I think I've said it before. Like it really is. It's the Communist Manifesto in play. I think it's more than just like a marketing gig. It really is. It what it's doing is creating tribalism amongst every group, and it's honestly destroying its system. It's rotting the entire system out. I think DEI is something that's always been used. I think race is the underbelly of this country, like the soft underbelly of this country. It's very easy to pick at it. It's very easy to create tension around it. It's very easy to rally votes around it. And so it's consistently being used. But I think bigger than it, it's being done to control. I think DEI is being used to control your speech, to control your thought. And I think it literally is going after, it's a target on, and it's attack on competency. That's, at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's an attack on competency, and it's an attack on those who are perceived to be the majority in power, those who are perceived to have privilege. You know how many times I've heard over this last decade how privileged I am? And I'm like, really? Wow, I never knew that. You should have grew up in the 1-bedroom apartment I grew up with my 2 sisters. Like, I didn't realize how much of a privilege. I was like, I definitely have a privilege. I have a mother and father who raised me and loved me and cared for me. Yeah, it's absolutely. I was born in America. That's a great privilege to have. As far as financially, as far as getting a job, come on. It's a joke to think that like white people walk around, or people you perceive to be white, as privileged. It's insane to me. I was just telling a story the other day. I had to go to like this artsy event, and it was at the top of the Empire State Building. It's in the Rainbow Room, right? So I had to go to this event. It wasn't for the job. It was for something else, but I was on the job at the time. And so I go there, and there's all these art people there, right? And so the CEO of one of these companies, he comes over to me. He's like, "Oh, what's going on?" And so I introduced myself. I talked to him. He's like, "Oh, are you in construction?" And I'm like, "No, I'm a sculptor." And he was like, "Oh." And I'm like, and it just, the reason I bring that story is up, it just goes to the point of, like, there are biases in everyone, and you're never going to eliminate it. And there's no reason to go into it. And there's no reason to try to make things even or fair, because by trying to make things equitable, you're actually making them less fair. You're actually going against law in this country. You're going against what's equal opportunity. You're hiring people based upon their race, based upon their gender, based upon their sexual preference, based upon their religion, because you need to even the numbers out. So what are you doing in order to do that? You're discriminating against everybody. Oh, no, we don't need any more male blacks. We got too many the last class. Now we need female Asians. So what does that mean when you're a male black? You're not being considered to be hired, right? Is that discrimination? Same thing across the board. It happens with everyone. Things will never be perfectly even. And that was my whole argument from the time we got into the diversity, equity, inclusion movement. I said, what's the goal? When do we meet it? When do we achieve full diversity? How do we do that? And we see how we do it. We lower standards, and honestly, it's rotted the institution, and you see crimes like this happening. You see failure after failure. You see crime rising. You see cops on the street that you're like, I'm not calling 911. These people show up to my house. I'm not doing this. You see cops shooting each other. And this comes out. Death in NYPD custody doubled in recent years. So I think it was between 2023 and 2024, I believe it was 49 deaths in NYPD custody. Does that mean that it's a result of DEI? I think so. I think it's a result of lowered standards. I think it's a result of lowered supervision. I think it's a result of lowered integrity. I think, how could we sit there and say that all of our integrity procedures failed? Our overtime procedures failed, but the way that we transport prisoners, the concern we have for prisoners when they're in our custody, that we still do perfectly. Oh, the arrests we make are still good. I mean, I think we're seeing, like, I think consistently I hear about escaped prisoners. I'd also like to see this with escaped prisoners, because I hear about escaped prisoners all the time. You didn't hear about that when we were cops. It was like, if it happened, everybody knew about it. And it was like a big thing. And I think we were all petrified. The same way we were petrified, like Marlon just said, he wouldn't eat a poppy seed bagel. Marlon wasn't alone in that. That was the entire police department. They wouldn't eat poppy seed bagels because they were worried about popping on adult tests. Same thing with losing prisoners. I'm not losing a prisoner. You hold on to the prisoner like that's your career, that's your life, that's your job. And like now we're seeing, whatever. You see cops walking with a guy handcuffed and nobody's holding him. And then he just, and it's a pursuit and it's a lost prisoner. And the same thing here. Is it a result of lowered standards? Yeah, I think so. I think the system is imploding from within.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. You're seeing a lowered product right now, and that lower product is because standards have been lowered. Everything is lowered because, again, we have money problems. And if you want quality, you're gonna have to pay for quality. If you want the best, if let's say I would love to see how much guys from the military are still joining this job too. By the way, because I suspect that job is lowered. That amount has lowered as well. Because again, if you're that alpha, you're the guy who wants to become a cop, the guy who, this is what you have your mind set on. I'm not so sure. And saying you're doing your due diligence and research before you come on the job. I'm not so sure you're coming on this job anymore. So you're getting a lowered quality of product, right? And naturally, because of that, we're starting to see all these things happen more and more. And it's kind of like a regular thing now with a lot of these failures, whereas like John said, years ago, it was like a rarity, but I think I'm gonna say also that it's like I said, it's an austerity measure because the city has budget problems. All these blue cities do, right? But it's an austerity measure that also pushes divide and conquer. Okay, because in a way, I think they don't want us noticing that all these problems are happening. So DEI, first of all, DEI, the people who these cities are pushing it's not even the Americans anymore, like Black Americans. I think they're pushing more immigrants. I think they want the people who just came here, and the reason why is because people who come here from like poor countries, they're more willing to tolerate a lot of the stuff here because again, you're poor, you're coming from a third world country, and then all of a sudden you're making like 50K. You're least likely you're a little bit less likely to complain about things, or to be outraged about things. But I think the divide and conquer strategy is because they want us all infighting and not noticing all that's happening. And I'm just something that really alarmed me this morning. So I noticed that like Trump is overseas in England signing a security deal, which entails our big tech companies working with their police departments in UK, and here he is, Trump, who's criticized Keir Starmer, who's the UK Prime Minister, because over there they're busy arresting you for what you say on social media. Here he is, he criticized them, and now you're signing a big tech surveillance state contract with him. So my point here is that this whole infighting thing, this whole left-right paradigm is all like distraction and all nonsense, while the real stuff, the real hands are being shaken behind the scenes, and the real problems are happening, and society is really degrading. So I think it's not only an austerity measure, but it's a divide and conquer strategy to keep us all fighting each other rather than solving the problems and improving the quality of the product.
So I think this is very troubling data. Troubling data that there's deaths in custody. So what does that mean? A death in custody means that someone died in police custody after the arrest. So while this might sound cliche, I think it's true that no matter who we arrest, that's someone's loved one, that's someone's father, mother, husband, wife, brother, sister, that's someone that we're responsible for their care. And I think ultimately you see all the failures that are going on in this police department, and it's now come to a head. And this is the byproduct of it, right? This is a byproduct, in my opinion. One, it shows that is so significant of how short and how this mass exodus crisis has affected policing on a whole. And to me, it paints a big picture. The fact that there are deaths in custody, to me, is a sign that there's not enough police officers to actually have care, custody, and control of an arrestee. Right? Keep in mind, this person is innocent until proven guilty. So you're responsible for every step of the way. You're responsible to make sure that the person is being monitored, to make sure they're in good physical and mental health. They're supposed to be checked periodically every half hour if they're in a cell. You're supposed to make sure that this person is being transported and that their medical health is being taken care of in custody, right? Could be arrested for a major crime, and it could be arrested for a minor crime. Now, there's also two aspects of this in addition to that. One, it's tragic, right? Because you're responsible for that person. The job of a police officer is never to I don't want to hurt this person. I want to place this person under arrest so that I can get this person to court. Because ultimately, it's the court to make the decision if the person is guilty or not and where that case goes. The police officer, and pretty much in layman's terms, is kind of just a messenger. So you want to make sure that you keep this person safe. The other thing is the cost that is then the byproduct of this, right? Because it will lead to astronomical lawsuits, and that costs the city money and the taxpayer money, right? A death in custody can cost significant and be in the millions. So it's tragic and it's a major cost. And to me, it just shows an epic failure. And I do believe, John and Marlon, you're absolutely right. DEI is a major factor in this. And what does DEI equal? Lower standards. So we have lower standards. We have police officers not as effective, and yet we have less police officers at this point. And we know that a majority of the police force has less than 5 years. So even if they had the best training they ever had, just as we had, it would still be less effective because they have less than 5 years on the job, which means they have less experience. And John, you're absolutely right, brother. In our time, it was a rarity. If someone lost a prison, you'd be like, wow. It was a big deal. It was almost front page news for the police department. Wow, someone lost a prison. It was a big deal because you did everything in your power to make sure that that person did not leave your custody. And you also made sure in your power that no one got hurt. You made sure that they didn't have laces. You made sure that they were monitored. You wanted to get them in court in good health. The last thing that you wanted is an issue that's going to be tragic, lead to a lawsuit, and this would be big news. So to me, this is just major signs. It's an epic fail with the police department. We have DEI, lower standards, mass shortage. We have police officers with less than 5 years on the job. And because of the vaccine mandate and the emasculation of the police department and police officers targeted like myself, Sal Greco, Marlon, John, many others, people that are on this chat who've been affected by it, you were not able to pass the torch on to these young police officers. And this is the byproduct. And next year, it could be even worse. It doesn't matter if it's Mamdani, if it's Eric Adams. If the root of the problems are not fixed, then we're going to have this problem ferment and get even worse than what we see right now.
Yeah. So, a lot of people are, Dog 29J. He says it's more lower quality of collars. Q teams are bringing in scales. Cigar Ghost, excuse me, I don't know why I can't talk today. Cigar Ghost, Skells who are junkies who can't survive hours in custody without their fix. You guys are right as to why the people are ultimately dying, but why are they dying in NYPD custody? So when I was a young cop and I locked up Skells, what was my concern? To get them out, right? I just want to finish my arrest. I don't want to take them to the hospital. I just want to get them through. And what would happen when I bring them to the desk? The desk officer would be like, before I even got to the desk, call an ambulance and get them out of here right now. Call an ambulance and get them out here right now. And, and you're a young cop and you're like, guy's an idiot. Now I'm going to take me hours to process this collar. Now I got all these vouchers, blah, 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 desk officer, blah, blah. Guess what? You'd rather have that perp die in the hospital than die in your cell, because now you're facing criminal charges, my friend. What did you do What did you do or didn't do? You brought this person in that looked like they were in need of medical assistance, and you didn't see the need to get them medical assistance? You didn't see that need? So, yeah, I agree with you. Bringing in more scales. You're bringing in people who are on their way out. Why are they getting past the desk officer? Why are cops feeling comfortable? So now by the time I had 3 years on, I knew I had a bag of crap. The minute, we were going to do some operation, whether it was like a bunch of skells, like selling heroin at methadone clinics, I knew I had a problem because you know what I knew? I knew that I'm bringing every single one of them to the hospital. I don't care because I don't want anyone dying in my custody. I don't need a criminal investigation about how I'm responsible for someone's death. We made the arrest. We made the arrest for XYZ. The person didn't seem right. I called an ambulance and we took him to the hospital. That was it. I mean, like, and this again is not. Yeah, you're gonna. There's gonna. I get it. You have to arrest these people, right? It is what it is. Your sergeant's telling you, we're going down to the subway and we're locking. And Eric Adams has a press conference here, so we got to lock up everybody that's doing anything, and half of them are on their way out of the picture. I mean, sad state of affairs in New York City that half of these people are dying on the streets in New York City and withering away. And that when you get them actually into a warm place where they could get water and food, they're dying. Sad state of affairs. But you have to have that knowledge and that experience to know why you're doing what you're doing and not to try to rush people through the system. So we have cops trying to do that. We have supervisors trying to do that. Why are you guys all trying to do that? Is it some of it has to do with laziness, but a lot of it has to do with manpower. And the bottom line is it doesn't matter. You that's your ultimate responsibility that day. When you lock someone up, they are your child. Do you want anyone asking you why your child passed away that day? I don't. Because guess why they're asking? They're not asking because they're curious. They're asking because they're looking to charge you criminally. And cops are not realizing to this day. That's 49 homicide investigations against NYPD officers. It's not 49 deaths in custody. It's 49 homicide investigations against cops. Why? Because of lowered standards, lack of experience, and the integrity and the knowledge of these supervisors. I mean, you get a scale and you think that he's going to die and you're not calling an ambulance and you're not taking him to the hospital. You're playing Russian roulette, my friend, with your career, with your freedom.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I don't care if you're in Q teams and they want you to bring in the scale and the Q team bureau or whatever they are now wants you to bring in the scale. I'm not doing it. Okay. Right. If the guy looks like he's about to keel over and croak in the precinct, I'm not doing it. OK, I always tell this story of like when I was a rookie and I brought in a 65-year-old man. No, he was actually older than that, to be honest with you. He was like he might have been in his 70s now that I think of it, because he could barely walk in the precinct. I had to uncuff him so he could use his cane to walk into the precinct. And the reason why I didn't want to collar him, but the problem is I had no answers when the sergeant responded. And I was a rookie. I didn't know how to actually, it was a domestic and the daughter alleged that she had like some scratch on her hand and I didn't know how to go about the job. So I had to walk in with this old man. And I remember the precinct looking at me like, what the hell is wrong with this rookie? And I learned a big lesson that day, because the sergeant responded and his driver responded, and neither one of them would help me out. I'm a rookie. I don't know what to do. And these guys are showing up and they're not telling me anything. I learned a very, very good lesson that day. And that lesson is, it's your job, it's you got to find a way to maneuver around this, because is it solving any good to bring in somebody who's a cripple into the precinct, to bring in somebody who is what good is it gonna do if you bring in a guy who needs more medical help than he does to be locked up? And so that's why I say I don't care if the Q teams want you to bring him in. I'm not bringing in a scale that's going to die in the precinct. And this is a lesson that this is why you need experienced personnel in the precinct. And the sergeant's operator, he had maybe a year or two more than me, so he was clueless himself, you know. And I remember at the time I was really pissed off at him too after the job, because I realized if I was the driver of the sergeant, I would have told you. I'd have pulled you aside and told you, hey, guy, this is our old man. It's not going to solve anything. And this is why you need veterans in the precinct to tell these young guys that you have to know how to maneuver around what they tell you, what they may tell you they want in a precinct, but in the long run, it's not good for the precinct. It's not good for that person to be brought in a precinct, and I'm sure you don't want to do it yourself. So that just to go back on what John said for Q teams.
So you brought up a great point, right? But there's always been measures in place, and those 3 measures actually worked, and I believe they would work now. And the problem is exactly what you said. There's a major gap, and this is what I talked about earlier. We're not passing the torch because we miss veteran police officers. Veteran police officers are so important to the nomenclature and the functioning of policing to ensure that the young rookies are doing it properly. And it also assists the leadership, because there's only so much the leadership can do. They can't be in 1,000 places at one time. But this, to me, shows another failure on the low-level managerial frontline supervision, because these checks and balances that we have in the street and at the desk are not being implemented. And what were those 3 measures? If we remember, you never bring someone into the precinct that is not of sound mind. I remember that specifically reading, study of a sergeant, lieutenant, and captain. You never bring someone in the precinct not of sound mind. You never bring someone in the precinct that requires immediate medical attention, right? And you never bring someone in the precinct that can't take care of themselves. Those 3 simple things were always great measures, and I believe they would work now. And it shows there's a major hole, because where is the supervision, the frontline supervision in the street to say, well, this person needs to go to the hospital immediately? Don't even bring them to the precinct, bring them to the hospital. And the same thing for the desk officer. Say, okay, obviously you're shorthanded right now. The desk officer has to validate a particular arrest because there's no supervisor in the street to do it. And that supervisor, if he has experience or she has experience, would know this person cannot go sit in a cell. They can't take care of themselves. They appear to require immediate medical attention, or they're not of sound mind, or maybe they fit all 3 categories. And that's where we're lacking. And we're lacking in experience, knowledge, and supervision, all the same, because we've lowered standards. We have a mass exodus. These supervisors, and I feel sorry for them. I speak to young sergeants in the NYPD, and they're not operating as supervision. They're pretty much clicking and praying when they're signing off on paperwork at this point, because they just don't have the time to actually vet body cameras. They don't have time to actually vet and evaluate their police officers, because they're just another sector car. And that goes for the lieutenants also, because they're so shorthanded. And to me, the fact that there's deaths in custody show a major hole. And, we could say they're arresting more homeless or more mentally ill or more skells. I don't think that's really the case, honestly, because years ago we had the homeless outreach unit. I had a lot of friends that worked there. They locked up some of the biggest skells, but they monitored them. They had the experience that these guys went right to the hospital, and a candy bar, right? I mean, I had a stack in my locker. You guys probably did too. I had a bunch of Heath bars. That was the fix. Or I think Rob Bluecash said it earlier, a bag of potato chips. We all knew those tricks. Those tricks came from years of experience and also just the knowledge. So I don't think it matters if there's more skells or not. I think it just shows that there's so many failures right now. It's leadership, experience, and rookies with lower standards.
Yeah, and you got to remember, we worked during the time of the opioid crisis too, where people were fiending out, man. Like, people would drop dead if they didn't get their fix. So we had to get that. It was like just a you knew you were taking the guy to the hospital. Like you found them walking around, pulling door handles, breaking into a house. Like, it wasn't a question. He's there, he smells, he's strung out. Like, this guy's going to the hospital. And then listen, if the hospital kicks him back to you and he dies in the cell, you did what you had to do. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it is what it is. Don't worry about it. If EMS refuses to take him, I mean, I would still fight with them. I would still put, I instructed EMS, blah, 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 blah. But like, I'm not putting that onus on me. I'm not. And the other problem with it is, we talked about at the inception of CRT and all these other things, where you have these young rookies making arrests, but yet they're not responsible for their prisoners. That's absolutely unbelievable, because now these guys have absolutely no experience in dealing with custody of prisoners, and dealing with the treatment of prisoners, and dealing with walkthroughs, and dealing with homeless, so that they have that integral knowledge of what that is. So when they become supervisors, they could lead and train other officers. You took that away from them and made them little Marys. So they go out, they make their collar, they drop it off at the precinct, they go out, they're like, yeah, I got a body, I got a number. No, bro, you didn't get a number. You didn't get a number. Anyone that makes an arrest. So it's for Jessica Tisch. This is what and John Shell and Kaz and whoever else is in here today. This is what overtime's for. This is how your cops make overtime, to go out and provide public safety for the people in New York City. They go out, they make an arrest, and guess what? They stay with that prisoner from start to finish. They go to the hospital with them. Now, if they have an extended period, obviously at some point they would need relief. But if they just need to get checked out, they're with that prisoner. If that prisoner is a walkthrough, they're with that prisoner. They stay with the prisoner the whole time. And they do it for every single one of their collars, consistently, all the time. And that's what it is. It's not hard. This is what it's for. This is how people learn. Now you have cops that they don't even have 100 collars, but they have 20 collars. They think they're superstars, and they never actually made one. They never actually learned how to deal with a prisoner, or sit there and have to deal with a hospital staff, and have to deal with walkthroughs, and they know nothing, and they're going to become sergeants, and guess what's going to happen? Nothing's a big deal, right? It's, I'm just waiting to get back to my khaki pants, bro. And the guy's dead in the cell. He's hanging himself in the cell. He dies in custody because you don't know any of it. And who do you blame? I mean, ultimately, I blame the job, because this is what they've done. They've empowered inexperienced rookies to train inexperienced rookies, to supervise inexperienced rookies, and then they become supervisors. And now you have captains that they couldn't find their way out of a wet pepper bed. I see kids that are DIs now that I'm like, I wouldn't follow this kid across the street, and he's a deputy inspector in the New York City Police Department. Kid, morons.
John, before Marlon, I don't want to cut you off. But I just want to say, and John, you said because of the job, and who's the job? I've been saying it for a long time. It's the management. That's who the job is.
Yeah. I'm glad John brought up that point about supervisors and leadership, because I was just about to ask that same question, whether we should be having a conversation really about supervisors, because to John's point, I'm seeing. I think guys are becoming supervisors younger and younger because of the your job is short of personnel. And back in the old days, they had to wait years for some of these tests to come up. Now if you hit the test right on the mark, you're becoming a very young in your career lieutenant, with less experience, and you're gonna pass that up. As you go up the ranks, you get to these roles where in the past guys would have years of battle tested experience before they get to those roles, whereas now it's like I'm looking at guys who are lieutenants and they look like they just got out of high school, and it's like, and
they're nervous and socially awkward, and it's like, how is this dude gonna lead?
Yeah. So my question was gonna be, this should be a question about supervision, because where is that supervisor to be like, what are you doing? We're not taking him in, and if you're getting guys who aren't battle tested, who haven't had experiences like this, and don't know that guy shouldn't be brought in a precinct, then this is what you get,
QCB makes a great comment here. Very true. Says anyone can be a supervisor and only a few can be a leader. Now, while that is very true, leadership requires being pressure tested, as Marlon said, battle tested. I believe there are some outliers that are just born leaders, but for most people, including myself, it requires being self-read, and it requires an extensive amount of training and skills that you learn along the way. And while I think you have a good point, Marlon, but there are some young police officers like myself. I got promoted exactly 5 years on the job. I passed for 3 years, but I had experience in the Marine Corps and with leadership. And
Yes.
unfortunately, because standards are lowered, some of these guys have zero experience and they're making supervisor. But I also think what's difficult right now is most of the sergeants I speak to are not learning how to be a leader, unfortunately, or a supervisor, one or the other, or both, because they're bogged down being another sector or just another hand. So they're not getting that opportunity to learn how to be a leader because of the failure of the leadership right now in the NYPD. And when you say the job, we're talking about you in this thread right now. The John Shells and the active chiefs that they've all failed right now. They're complicit and comprised of cowards who are not speaking out about the atrocities right now. And it fails the entire police department. And it fails the frontline supervisors because they don't have the ability to learn how to be a supervisor because they're running around with chickens without a head, and they're chasing their own tails right now, and they don't know what's up or what's down and how to be a supervisor right now. And I feel sorry for them. And then those same sergeants, because this mass exodus haven't learned anything, they're going to get bumped up to lieutenant with no experience. And this is just a failure now that's epidemic throughout the entire department. And so, like Samara Cohen says here, tread water until you make boss. And some of these young cops are doing that exactly that. They're treading water. They're not really policing, because if you do start to police and you do intrusive police work the way that you should, if you were paid and trained to do what you're supposed to do, you would then become a target of CCRB. And once you become a target of CCRB, the Civilian Complaint Review Board, you may not get promoted. You can get promoted if you cheat on your taxes. You can get promoted if you have a questionable shooting. But if you have a CCRB on your record, and because it's disciplinary matrix, it is going to hold you back from promotion. So that's another thing. There's so many aspects right now. Just honestly, looking at this from the outside, especially in retirement, it's really troubling. And you realize that, to the NYPD's credit, there were a lot of measures in place that I believe can transition and work over time, even as policing evolves. And that's exactly the measurements that we just spoke about on ensuring the custody and control of someone in your possession. You know, and the cost that is behind this is going to be astronomical, having deaths. And now I'll say this also. I think it's pretty much virtually impossible. It is always going to happen. It's a byproduct of policing. Unfortunately, there will always be deaths in custody. But the measures that are put into place will minimize it and not get to the astronomical numbers that we have right now. So unfortunately, you could probably never get it to zero unless it's pure luck, but we have to do everything in place. And that's also a skill of policing, right? The skill of policing is not just making the arrest, it's the after arrest action, monitoring your prisoner and making sure that they're safe. And that's the whole point of those prisoner transport paperwork, is to make sure that they're safe, and advising corrections or anyone that's going to take custody of your prisoner of the condition they're in. And they can make the observation if anything changes or what needs to be made. So, unfortunately, that's where we're at.
Yeah, no, it's that's exactly what it is. I mean, there's just a lack of experience in the New York City Police Department. That's, I mean, and it goes down to that. Everything that we're seeing comes from a lack of experience, and that's what I'm saying when I say DEI. DEI hires unqualified people. It promotes unqualified people. I'm not pointing out a particular race. I'm saying everybody. It lowers everything. It rots an institution from within. It rots the institution. So let's go over to free speech now. So the free speech debate is raging in America. And as Marlon just pointed out, what's happening in Britain, overseas in the UK, right? We don't live in Britain. So I put out a post the other day. I'll play that post in a little bit, where I said that hate speech is as American as apple pie. And it absolutely is. And if I could show you my phone, the amount of Americans that have texted me that said hate speech is illegal and there's no place in America for hate speech, I'm like, you clearly don't understand the foundings of this nation. So let's go to what happens with hate speech. So Marlon just said that, supposedly the free speech warrior, well, when the speech is good for him, President Trump is over in the UK looking at what they do on how they crack down on free speech. So, we're watching two sides debate over what's free speech, and neither of them want free speech. They want speech that they agree with. The right wants speech that they agree with. The left wants speech that they agree with. They want to criminalize a speech that they disagree with, and the right wants to criminalize speech that they disagree with. And neither of them want criticism from the people that they serve. So here's what it looks like in a country where you don't have free speech. Here's what it looks like. This is it. This is what, this is the model that Make America Great Again is now looking to go.
Come in, but you better have a damn good reason for being here. I'm a member of the Free Speech Union, and I'm an American citizen. I'll have Elon Musk on you so quick your feet won't touch.
Something that we believe you've written on Facebook has upset someone.
You're here because somebody got upset. Is it against the law? Am I being arrested?
You're not being arrested.
Then what are you doing here?
So I just want you to notice that this woman has like a hospital tray near her because she's home dying of cancer. So just this is where the UK is. So her post upset someone. I put out a post every day. It upset about 5,000 people globally. And then you have people in this chat right now that are highly upset, about 4 of them in particular.
My plan was, if you were admitting that it was you who wrote the comment, you could just make an apology to the person.
I'm not apologizing to anybody. I can tell you that.
The alternative would be that I have to call you in for an interview. I'm here to talk to you about the allegation. They've reported it to the police.
So what?
Obviously, we get a lot of reports like that.
Are there no houses that have been burgled recently? No rapes, no murders?
Yeah, that's all going on as well.
Well, then why aren't you out there doing, investigating those?
Because I want to investigate everything that gets reported.
Well, you're not investigating houses being burgled.
No, that's not my job today. I'd like to have a look at the comment that
I don't need to. I know exactly the things I've said. You know how many people in this neighborhood have been broken into?
I don't look after this neighborhood.
No, of course you don't, unless there's a tweet, then you do. So what? I haven't broken any laws. So you're going to be wasting your time when you can be instead doing things that are more important.
That's why I wanted to just come to you directly, have a chat about it.
No. You should not be doing this. I'm a cancer patient. You can see that because I'm bald.
I didn't know that before I came, but it doesn't change anything. You still can't break laws. If you haven't broken the law, then nothing happens.
Well, you know whether I've broken a law. You can judge for yourself before you even show up at my door. The public knows what you guys are doing. We know what's going on in this country. Why don't you do that? Get onto them and tell them to apologize to me, a cancer patient, a woman living on her own, who has never broken a law in her life, by the way, ever. An older woman, you tell them, I'm an elderly woman, I'm a cancer patient.
I have to come back and arrange an interview then.
Well, you can arrange it, but I'm going to tell you the same damn things that I'm telling you now. Next time, I'm going to have a free speech union lawyer with me.
So that's the state. That's the state of the UK. That's what both the left and the right are looking to usher in here into the United States of America. So when I say hate speech is as American as apple pie, it absolutely is, because anything you say could be offensive to somebody.
Yeah. I'm going to say we're already here. They just need a push to take it one step further. And I know we're already here because I as I've told you guys, I used to be in Leeds in Intel. And Intel already goes after people who say stuff on the internet, stuff that's protected speech. Intel already goes on interviews like 10-year-old kids in school because they said something stupid in class. So you got to have a case on a 10-year-old. It's stupid things like this that made me, after a certain point, I needed to get out of that unit. Because I came in thinking that we're like the city's own Joint Terrorist Task Force, like a junior version of it. And then after all these school shootings, it was taken another level. And here's where we at. And I've said before numerous times on the show that Rebecca Weiner, I've listened to some of her interviews, and she keeps repeating the same talking points that are anti-freedom of speech, which are about misinformation and hate speech. So I know she's probably frothing at the mouth to get to the state of UK, the state that UK policing currently is at right now. That what you're seeing there should raise alarm bells for everybody, because they've arrested people, not just gone to their house and talked to them. They've arrested people for insulting somebody on social media. Okay, and that is just beyond anything that we any dystopian movie we could have seen years ago. And as I said earlier, it's been pushed by both sides, because yesterday, a contract was signed with the UK.
First of all, I just want to address, I got this fly for the past 2 days. I can't get rid of. It's been in this room. I know a couple of people have addressed it. I've been trying to get rid of it. It's been yeah. Someone, I think it was Samara Cohen, that said the Alaskan bird apparently is a fly. But yeah, going back to your point, Marlon, you're spot on. It's both sides, and John's been saying that too. It's both sides right now that are trying to control speech, manipulate speech, and what do we say? Control the narrative. This is some scary stuff right here. It's some scary stuff, because what is hate speech? Really, hate speech is nothing. Samara Cohen says mosquito. Yeah. But what is hate speech? It's really nothing. And hate speech is so subjective, right? It's what's offensive to you. And I think this is some scary stuff, because at what point and what does it end? Where does it start? What are the boundaries? What are the boundaries on hate speech? And like John said, what you said earlier, John, is spot on, right? We say things quite often that people find extremely offensive, like John Shell and the other weak egos of Kaz Daughtry and many others of the upper echelon of the police department and this administration that can handle criticism. They find criticism as offensive. Offensive, what we're learning now, is hate speech. And that was why John and myself did in the infancy of this podcast, we did an episode about the disciplinary matrix, which no one was exploring at the time. And the disciplinary matrix about 3 years ago, where we said on a podcast, there is discipline in the NYPD for hate speech. And we said, what is that? What is hate speech? What exactly is hate speech? And it's really nothing. And this is a problem, because they're trying to turn nothing into something. And if we don't put our fingers on this now, this is not just a problem for America. This is a problem for the entire world. And that the reason why this has become a globalist thing is because of social media. Social media has changed the world and made it a smaller place where everything is now tangible. You know, before social media was at the point that it's at right now, if you were some kid in Africa and a kid in America, you probably would never connect. But everyone has a phone and everyone has social media access and everyone has access to the world. And so now if they try to control speech, they're going to control the entire world. In the end, who wins? It's the special interest groups and people with money. And it's everyone else, which is general population, that is left behind and left to control. And just think how life would be uncomfortable and awkward to not know what you can say or can't say. And what ultimately that's going to do is shut down communication. And I think that's what they want. They shut down the communication within the world, because you can't use your mouth, which is a powerful tool of spreading truth. And that's what this does.
Yeah, I mean, and so like that's the debate that's raging now. It's funny, like Charlie Kirk was the embodiment of free speech, right? He went out there and he was like saying these things that pushed out against the left. And now yet any criticism of him, the right are going insane and saying that's horrible. These people should be in jail. They should be deported. They should be there. And I'm like, well, I understand, like, you should be held accountable for your words, and maybe your job will be taken from you, but like, you're doing the cancel culture that the left did. You're doing the same exact thing. You're actually out hunting and seeking. And the whole Jimmy Kimmel thing I was laughing about, because the Post had put an article out 17 hours after I posted. I'm like, Jimmy Kimmel didn't get canceled for criticizing Charlie Kirk's assassination. He absolutely didn't. Nobody's listening to Jimmy Kimmel, and they needed an excuse. So that was the first excuse they got. And I said, and I would love to see his ratings. And 17 hours later, New York Post, shout out to you. You did that analysis. They said they did it. His ratings were down tremendously. And I mean, if any, Jimmy Kimmel should have been canceled in 2020. The things he was saying about Americans in 2020 were disgusting, right? But people were still watching him. He had ratings. You know, that's why ABC doesn't care about him saying, a comedian saying anything about Charlie Kirk. And honestly, neither should Americans. Like, is it disgusting? Yeah. but you have the right not to watch him. You have the right not to listen to him, and it's not a crime. So Megyn Kelly, she does this the other day. Great segment. I thought, like, this is only 30 seconds of her, and she just crushes the free speech debate right here and the hate speech debate. Again, I can't stand listening to hate speech has no place in this country coming from people who are much more educated than I am, yet they cannot define hate speech because it's any speech.
Big debate breaking out over what to be done about hate speech in America. Nothing. The answer is nothing. It's fine. It's part of being American. Too bad. You don't like it? Speak the opposite. That's the answer. You're American. That's how we do it here. There's nothing wrong with hate speech. Sorry, not legally. There's nothing for a prosecutor to do, an attorney general to do. The only thing you do is to speak louder with your POV. That's it. There, I solved it.
She solved the debate. That's it.
Yeah. I said before online that the same people who think hate speech is actually a thing are the same exact people who think that you should get a medical experiment for their own safety. The same people who want you locked up in your house during the scandemic. Okay. It's these are the people who they believe your rights end at their personal discomfort. And it doesn't matter which side the aisle they're on, because it may appear to be different, but it's the same thing. They're the same people. Okay. They both, neither one of them understand that you have fundamental rights. And this is the danger of where things are really headed in this country.
I was so impressed with that monologue that Megyn Kelly put out, because she just shut it down in just in a couple of seconds. That's exactly it. What is hate speech? Nothing. And you're right, Marlon. You know who those people are? I saw them. They had masks like this. You could barely see their eyes. And they were out in the free air with no one around, or driving in their car by themselves with their mask. And I'm like, whoa, have we lost our minds? Okay. If that's what you want, if you feel comfortable wearing a mask when you're around people, fine. But when you're by yourself in your car, or you're walking in the street, or you're just going, I mean, we see those people, right, going for a jog, and they're completely covered. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? That is insane. It's just, and this is the ideology of hate speech. You find something offensive. Well, listen, people say things that are hateful. People say things that are mean. But yes, if we curtail that, we curtail a lot. I mean, we have to go back and look at 9/11 when the Patriot Act came out, and a lot of us thought it was good. And look at where we're at with it now, right? On the probing and the surveillance that goes on within this country. What will happen when we start to curtail hate speech? And where does it end? You know what? Could they say, you know what? Those guys, when they do the Friday roundtable, we need to show up at their houses. Those guys that said some stuff today was hate speech, right? They said they don't like those guys at the upper management of the job. That's some hate speech. And next thing you know, we're getting locked up for it. For what? You know exactly what it is? It's what I said before. Hate speech is true speech. That's what it is. And that's what they want. If you control speech, you cut off communication. What it shows is communication is such a powerful tool. And that's why Charlie Kirk was a dangerous man, because he was spreading words that are so powerful. He was infecting minds in a positive way, making people think about DEI, making them think about different things going on in this country, whereas before, maybe they would just be sheep, right? Sal often says low information people, right? Well, they want people that don't think. They want people that are just kind of going through the motions. But because of podcasts and because of free speech, we spread information, we communicate with each other, and we affect each other's minds positively or negatively. And this curtail and this putting grips on free speach, or hate speech, as they want to call it. Hate speech is free speech. This is scary stuff. Every one of us should be scared right now of what could happen, not just in America, what could happen in the entire world, because we are all connected in this world right now because of social media. Social media has now made the world much smaller. We don't have to deliver stuff by telegram. We send stuff in an instant, and everyone has access to information. Some kid in a foreign country that is poor still has a cell phone and has access to the entire world. So no longer, there was an old term, right? You would call someone a hick or a hillbilly that lived somewhere that didn't have access to the world. But everyone has access to the world, and the world has changed, and everyone is getting smarter and apt to what's going on.
Yeah, no, it's like look at this. Look at Brandon Johnson, right? Brandon Johnson. So Hood Maya says hate is dislike, intent to harm through hate is another story. I mean, that's a threat. Threatening someone is illegal. Threatening someone, but saying that speech is inflammatory and speech leads to violence. Listen to what Brandon Johnson says. His speech, you could argue, will lead to violence against police officers. You could argue that. But at the same point, this is America, and people are entitled to opinions and entitled to say things. So when, the people talk about hate speech, here's an example of what they're talking about. Someone having an inflammatory opinion. Now, I personally think Brandon Johnson, I think Eric Adams should donate some money to Brandon Johnson because he took the place of being the dumbest mayor in the country. So, shout out to you, Eric, because you don't have to worry about, being the dumbest mayor anymore and saying the stupidest things. Here's Brandon Johnson. Listen to what Brandon Johnson said. And you could say that this is hate speech, but I say this is constitutionally protected speech. It's dumb speech. It's not speech that I agree with, but show the world who you are. Brandon Johnson should have the ability to show the world just how stupid he is. Here's Brandon Johnson.
The fact of the matter is we are driving violence down on this city, and we're using every single resource that's available to us. Jails and incarceration and law enforcement is a sickness that has not led to safe communities. The fact
law enforcement is a sickness that hasn't led to safe communities. Could that inflame violence against police officers? Certainly it could. It's his opinion, and I support his constitutional right to let the world know that he is, in fact, the stupidest mayor in America.
Yeah. I said this many times before, John, but I keep getting these post 9/11 vibes here, and it just doesn't make me comfortable, because to me, I'm sensing the dangerous mix of like authoritarianism with fake patriotism, and it's only a matter of time before it moves beyond, because I don't think hate speech is working. I think there are too many people who recognize it, and just by the pushback you're seeing online, you're seeing you look at these threads and you're seeing a lot of conservative people are saying, "What are you talking about?" That look at the pushback Pam Bondi got, when she's had that's when she gave that interview, and people were like, "Well, this lady doesn't even understand the law, and she's the attorney general." So I'm seeing a lot of pushback there, but I'm wondering how long before it shifts from being hate speech to being un-American, So it's the hate speech angle isn't going to work. So now we're going to push, you're un-American for saying that even the wacky leftists should have a voice on the internet, and again, it's a dangerous mix of that freedom fries fake patriotism that we saw after 9/11 with authoritarianism. I see that comment, Rob. Yeah.
So I think it's important, right? We're talking about the difference between legality and social definitions, right? So while it's not necessarily socially accepted to have hate speech, but there's no legality here, right? Or illegality. And the fact that it's your First Amendment right to say what you feel and say what you want, and your right to expression. Now, I do agree when it comes to your employment, as far as your employer being able to say, hey, this is speech that doesn't represent our business, our company, our model, our professionalism. It's unprofessional. It affects our business in a negative way, or it affects our administration, whatever that case is. That I agree with, right? Because we're talking about what supports a company. But as far as what you say in life on your own time, that's your God-given right. And as I said in a prior episode, It's a God-given right that we have to constantly fight for. And I don't necessarily mean fight for with violence, but fight for by constantly speaking out and sticking together and saying, well, we will not have this. Because if we sit back, we will allow this, the politicians globally, to incite this, and this could become a reality. So for those that think it will never happen, it could happen. It could happen. Yes, men have, especially in America, men have fought and died for this country so that we can have that First Amendment right. And that First Amendment right, and I'm so glad it's number one, is the most important thing. And our young forefathers, as young as they were, they knew that. They knew that your freedom of expression and freedom of speech is so powerful. They didn't know how social media would come out one day, but social media is the gateway to the entire world. And that we all have free speech and we can communicate throughout this entire world. And communication is such a powerful tool. And if we allow this social definition to take over, no longer does it matter about legal or legalities. We're getting too emotionally involved, and we have to ask ourselves, why? What is really behind this? And it really shows that there's no party lines anymore. Like you said earlier, Marlon, I want to piggyback on that again. The left and the right are attacking hate speech or free speech, as you say, in different ways. They're attacking it in different ways, but they ultimately, I think they have finally met at the middle. And what they both want is ultimate control.
Yeah, 100%. And they don't want any criticism. So, I'm not like a huge fan of Candace Owens and all these like social media influences. I personally think everything we're watching on the debate stage in politics is WWE. I don't believe either of them. Like, I don't believe CNN. I don't believe Fox. I don't believe Candace. I don't believe anybody. I watched Patrick Bet-David do a whole show on Candace Owens and how it was wrong for her to criticize and she shouldn't say anything. And I was like, wow, I can't believe I used to listen to this guy. And they had no point. They sounded completely un-American. And so to your point, Marlon, that's what they were saying about her. She's un-American. She's disrespectful. She's not friends with Charlie Kirk. They were making like all these inflammatory accusations about her. And I'm like, we have the right as Americans to criticize and ask questions. I get she has a big audience, and I get that. I get that, like, you want people to put out factual information, but I don't think she's pushing out lies either. I don't think she's necessarily pushing out lies either. She's pushing opinions. She's pushing opinions that you might disagree with, but that doesn't necessarily make it a lie. To be critical of Israel, to be critical of the FBI, to be critical of the Trump administration doesn't make you un-American. It actually makes you American. You know what I mean? Like Brandon Johnson, as dumb as he is, he has right to be critical of law enforcement. Now, people are pointing out here, he has a very large security detail. As Pat Donahue said, if Eric Adams is so happy with the state of crime and crime so down, why does he have a security detail? Because he told us, right? City's safe. The mayor doesn't need a security detail, right? They have the right to be dumb. They do. They have the right to say things, but we as Americans have the right to criticize. And how could you not criticize? How could you not criticize? Listen, this is the director of the FBI. Listen to the director of the FBI. Tell me what this word salad means to you guys. Listen to him. Ready? This is what he's going to talk. He's going to be talking about a note. Here you go.
Written note? Did he write a written note before the assassination attempt? That's what the governor said yesterday. And what did that say? If you could.
So what I'm able to say. I'm sorry. So what I'm able to say is I addressed it partially earlier, is that the written note, we believe what did exist, and we have evidence to show what was in that note, which is, and I'm going to summarize, basically saying the suspect wrote a note saying, I have the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and I'm going to take it. That note was written before the shooting. Evidence of its existence, we now have learned, existed before the shooting, was in the location in the suspect and partner's home. But we have since learned that the note, even though it has been destroyed, we have found forensic evidence of the note, and we have confirmed what that note says because of our aggressive interview posture at the FBI.
So like, if you are critical of him, are you un-American if you're critical of this FBI director because Trump appointed him? I mean, because to me, that was an entire word salad to go around to tell you that there was a destroyed note that they believe they have evidence of, and that possibly either the suspect or his supposed trans boyfriend destroyed, and have confessed to having that this note was there. I mean, but that was a huge word salad. And so, like, to me, I don't know. Kash Patel does not exude confidence to me. He doesn't exude, like, the things that I'm watching him do online. And then, so if you're critical of him, are you American or are you un-American?
Yeah. Remember how Kash Patel was before you got there? You know, this was a guy who went before Congress and was like shutting down. He was shutting down senators, you know? And here he is now, and it's like a word salad, you know? Like, I needed to watch that like 3 times before I understood what he said. I'm like, is it me? Am I having like a stroke or something that I can't understand what he's talking about? It's you know, this is why people have lost confidence in him, and like you know, people have been raised up and criticizing, and MAGA itself. We spoke about it a couple months ago about the is this the some of MAGA discontent, because MAGA was splintering and questioning a lot of these narratives and a lot of what's been going on and what hasn't been done by the administration. Yeah. Now I won't mention all the cases, but you know the cases. You know the people, including the guy with the billionaire, the certain unscrupulous billionaire with an island in the Caribbean. You know, who happened to have unalived himself. You know, supposedly. But I this is why I think like Charlie Kirk's death is being used to kind of galvanize MAGA and kind of put direct the narrative away from people thinking logically and analyzing the situation. And I besides what we saw there, and I mentioned Pam Bondi before, I noticed an impassioned plea from Benny Johnson yesterday. And that when I see that, it tells me the level of desperation and the tactics that are coming from them, and why they don't want that free speech, why they want to steer people away from criticism, and how they're doing it.
Well, to your point, John, about word salad, to me that was total rambling. That was rambling, and what I gathered from that also, based on my own police experience and based on anecdotal experience, what he's saying to the public is that they have not concrete evidence. They're telling you that their case is built on circumstantial evidence, because it's almost as if this damn fly, I can't get rid of him. But it's almost as if you're saying that if I had an arrest of someone in possession of a legal firearm, say, well, I don't have the firearm was destroyed, but we know he had a firearm because we tested his hands. I mean, it's absolutely the most ridiculous thing. It's just complete circumstantial evidence. We're telling the public that this case is built on some circumstantial evidence. This is the best that the FBI could do. And you can tell he doesn't sound confident, and there's no conviction in this, because to me, it's complete rambling. And with that being said, to me, it doesn't sound truthful. So based on what we all said, this all ties together. If there is now no right to free speech, if we lose that one day, I would be subject to some type of form of discipline through the law, because I just said I don't believe him, and I can tell you right now, I don't.
Oh yeah. And Joel says call him a DEI appointment. I already said it. I said it a couple of shows ago. I think that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel are DEI appointments. I'm not impressed with either of them. I'm not impressed with Dan Bongino either. I'm not. And so this was like the show that Candace did, that Patrick Bet David and them, and what they were honing in on is her views, and I found that even funnier. Like, they only cared. They're like, oh, she just were doing it for clicks. It's like, dude, you're on air right now. Are you doing it for clicks? What are you saying? Like, I don't understand what the point is of how she's un-American or how she's wrong. You could say that she's a wacko. You could say that she's off base. You could say you don't agree with her. But they literally spent an hour and a half talking about Candace Owens and basically saying, like, trying to tell their audience that nobody should be listening to her, and like all this other stuff. And it was and she should only do it if Charlie Kirk's wife wants her to do it. Like, so she's Charlie Kirk's friend, but she could only do it. She could only have an opinion if Charlie Kirk's wife wants her to have an opinion on it. And it's like, no, she's entitled to her opinion. She's entitled to say the things she has to say. She has her own show. She was thrown off of Daily Wire. I mean, like, this is America. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what's that little guy's name? The little annoying guy. Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro didn't like her on the network because she was saying things like that he thinks were wrong. So he threw her off her network. So she started her own podcast and she blew up. And now, like, the entire right is against her because she's critical of what we're being told in the media about Charlie Kirk's death. So this is just like a clip. And honestly, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to say, I don't necessarily agree with her on these points, but in my own world, in my own point of view, I don't believe what the hell we're being told by anybody. So, like, including her. So, I mean, so where am I on the spectrum? I guess I'm anti-American too. Here we go. Listen to Candace Owens.
And this is what happened. Something made its way around the entire town and into my tips line repeatedly. It is a very clear image of Tyler Robinson, allegedly taken. I'll say allegedly for safety here, but it's looking right according to my timeline. Allegedly taken at 6:38 p.m. at a nearby Dairy Queen. Here is that photo that we can show you. Just take a look at this photo. What is wrong with this picture? A lot is wrong with this picture. First and foremost, 6:38 p.m. You just shot someone. You have gone through great pains to hide your face, to change your outfit. But wait, you didn't fully change your outfit, did you? I'm looking at this photo and you're wearing jeans and you're wearing the maroon shirt. Now we have a 50-50 combo of the outfits. And now you're showing your eyes and you're not fearful at all that you might be recognized. Also, wow, you must have quite the stomach.
So, and so, like, you see what she's doing, right? She's questioning everything, right? She's questioning every piece of evidence, right? She's entitled to do it as an American. What the hell is wrong with that? Now, and the other thing that boggles my mind, it's like, well, if she was totally off base, she wouldn't have as big a following as she does. But some of the things she says, I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? That's a good point, right? And I don't watch her a lot. But I'll tell you this, if you're going up on live on YouTube and you got 1 million people watching you, you're not totally off base either. You know what I mean? There's a roughly, and that's what Pat Bet-David was saying. Oh, I wonder who watches her. It's like, so if you watch, so you're saying only people that listen to Pat Bet-David are good Americans, and the people that listen to Candace Owens aren't? Because I listen to almost everybody. If I have time and I'm interested in a subject, I listen to the left and I listen to the right. So I didn't understand his point in that at all. I'm telling you, if you guys watch that Pat Bet-David thing, I think totally different about the guy. I thought totally different about him after he interviewed Eric Adams and never asked him a question. Now I'm like, I totally think he's just a shill. I'm not a fan of his show or anybody that was on him. He had Eric Bolin on. He had those two other guys. I don't know who they are, but like, I'm like, I would have shredded them on that whole thing. I shredded them. They were horrible yesterday.
Yeah, I agree. I think I said before, I think Vinny Oshana is the only worthwhile person left on that show. And
dude, you had to hear him yesterday. You had to hear him yesterday. You had to hear him. He was horrendous. Horrendous.
I'm surprised, because I keep saying that guy's gonna leave PBD any day now, because he always seems to be the only one with the with the differing opinion, but I think part of his PBD's attempt to kind of delegitimize Candace here is because I wonder where his ratings are. I said before, like, when you're in this space now, social media, when you lose authenticity, you lose the audience. Okay, because the reason why the audience are here is because mainstream media is no longer legitimate to them. They see through the narratives. Everybody sees it. Even my parents are Democrats, are staunch Democrats, and even they are not watching mainstream news anymore because at a certain point it's like you're asking people to suspend their any sort of reasoning and logic, and I don't think it's working, right? And if you go back to Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire, there are plenty of people who see through Ben Shapiro, because you look at his comments every time he says something that's wacky, you see plenty of comments from his viewers like, what are you talking about, Ben? Your take is like at a certain point, it goes from being just that somebody's opinion looks so one-sided that it's like it's not just ignorance, it's a deliberate ignorance and a deliberate attempt to push a narrative, and people see through that. And look at the Daily Wire. They had layoffs in April, and there are rumors that they're in financial trouble now with their CEO Jeremy Boring having stepped down, and I think the communications director or somebody else higher up also left. Meanwhile, Candace is getting 1 million views for it because people are seeing through the narratives. And this again goes back to what I said before, that they're trying to galvanize public support now because people are seeing through the narratives and they're not buying a lot of this anymore.
So I think that another reason why we see attack on free speech and the so-called hate speech more now than ever is because of social media. With social media, we now have more of a voice than we've had before. And why do I say that? So quite often, I think we don't see anymore what is considered journalist integrity, right? Because in the mainstream media, journalists, reporters are bound by journalist integrity. They're supposed to give true information, right? Or otherwise they are subject to lawsuits. But no longer do we really see most people, even in mainstream media, are not considered journalists anymore. And they consider themselves entertainers, and that's how they get around things. Now, what's interesting about Candace Owens, she's she's a political commentator, she's a media personality, she's an activist. So she has a right to her opinion. And that's what we see more often now. We see more podcasters just like us, big podcasts, small podcasts, and medium level podcasts. But podcasts are people with an opinion. And because we have a right to an opinion, we have a right to give assessments, different angles and different perspectives of the way we want to view things or the way we see things. And the reality is there is a full effort to have control because they, when I say they, both parties, left and right, want people to think a certain way. And that's what we talk about, control the narrative. But because of podcasts and political activists and media personalities, we now have more opinions. And because of more opinions, we now have more truth and the more angles to look at things. So Candace Owens, she has every right to break this down and look at this case. That's her opinion. And her opinion may be true and it may not. But the reality is the more opinions that we have holds the FBI and this administration accountable, or any administration. And that's what we need. Exactly what we're doing by having more podcasts. And we need more podcasts out there. More podcasts, more opinions, more anecdotal experience out there. Real people giving information is power. And that's the reality. The politicians see this, and globally, that the people are getting more power now than ever because of social media. And the reality is most politicians don't really want to serve the public. They want the public to serve them.
So this was last night. This is Hawk Newsom. He's one of the co-founders of the New York BLM chapter. And then you got the idiot Relly Rel, who I like to refer to as the Deputy Commissioner of Anarchy, New York City. Paid agitators, in my opinion, paid protesters, in my opinion. So they're saying absolutely horrible things. And I support their ability to do that. But again, you see, we're told that if Mondani becomes the mayor, people are going to walk around the streets of New York City like they own it, and the streets are going to be shut down. And clearly you see a bunch of men here walking right in Times Square. I mean, can cars drive past them? Can cars go around them? Doesn't look like it to me. Taking over a street. So no, should they be arrested for their speech? Absolutely not. Should they be arrested for restricting traffic? Absolutely, they should. Should they be arrested for obstructing streets? Absolutely, they should. No, but instead, you know what they have? They have a nice security detail around them. That's what they have. That's what the NYPD is doing. They're obviously not arresting them. So they're the security detail. You see khaki pants in the back. You see the cops on all sides of them. And then when they start with people and the physical confrontation come, the NYPD steps in and does security for them while they violate all types of law in New York City. So, while I support their right to free speech and let everyone know just what horrible human beings they are, I also think, when they violate law in this city as they're trying to incite violence, they should be arrested for that minor violation of the law. But we don't do that anymore in the New York City Police Department. And so Mondani's not the mayor. So that's already here. So, and that's why I say, and I consistently say, is that like, you worried about socialism, you live under it right now. You live in New York City, you live under a socialist mayor. You lived under a socialist mayor for the last 12 years. You know what you're going to get from this socialist mayor? Another socialist. Who cares? Look at what's happening here. Listen to these morons.
Charlie Kirk! Fuck 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 Charlie Kirk! No, you guys gotta get fuck Charlie Kirk! 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 He was a racist! He was a racist! He was a racist! He was a racist! He was hateful! He was hateful! He was nothing like Martin Luther King! He was nothing like Martin Luther King! Nothing at all! Nothing at all! Nothing at all! Justice for Fred Reed! Justice for Fred Reed! Justice for Fred Reed! Justice for Fred Reed! Justice for Fred. It's amazing! It's amazing! Did they police speech? Did they police speech? They police my speech! They police my speech! Police follow me around! Police follow me around! They follow Reggie Relly around! They follow Relly around! They want to police us! They want to police us for speaking for freedom! For speaking for freedom! But people can spread hate! People can spread hate and get national holidays. That's why. I can't stand the police. I can't stand the police. They followed Martin Luther King Jr. They helped kill Malcolm X. But they protect people who hate us. The medical said there's no foul play. The medical said there's no foul play. Bullshit! Bullshit!
But anyway, so like, and by the way, if you live in New York City or you pay taxes in New York City still, you're funding these people to go out there and do this. And you see them with their useful idiots and their dumb chants. And yeah, I support their right to protest. I support their right to say absolutely horrible things, expose the world who they are. And Relly, I mean, that kid definitely needs to hit the gym. Those arms are looking frail, bro. Those arms are looking. Looks like
they look like noodle arms.
Those arms are. I don't even know how you walk around the streets like that, acting tough. I don't care. He's 6'6".
I recommend Relly Rel maybe every couple of blocks just stop and just get down to 25 push-ups because he is a little muscle there. if he only had the muscle tone to match his voice, you gotta love it. You gotta love it. Hawk Newsom, I remember he was arrested in PSA 7. Of course, big tough guy that goes out in the street was arrested by the CO and he was arrested by the CO and the ICO, and he made a CCRB. He made a civilian complaint. You gotta love it. You gotta love it. Anyway, Ball, what are your thoughts, man? What are you thinking?
Yeah, well, actually, Juju just made a great question for once in a while. You know, this must have been like, we need to give him. Too bad we can't give him an award here, you know. But he says, do you think the monetary incentive is what motivates right-wing punditry? And it's not just right-wing, Juju. You're seeing right there in that example with Hawk Newsom. It's on both sides. These are both paid agents, okay? Now, it manifests itself differently, from the right and left, because Hawk Newsom does he have a job? No. But whereas Pat Bet-David has a lifestyle, a company, and a network, which means certain access to certain people, to the president, to celebrities to maintain, and but they're both when you both parrot talking points without looking at the nuances in it. When you have on Eric Adams and you don't actually ask him any tough questions, okay? You're clearly pushing an agenda, okay? It goes back to that point that it's 100% monetary incentive that's pushing this And why is it pushing? We said it before, because it's a distraction and it creates division, because they want each of us fighting amongst each other and not looking at the real problems that are happening in society right now.
Well, the bottom line is this, right? Protesting in this city and in this country pays well. I can't get rid of this damn fly, but it pays well. It's been bothering me the whole time. But I gotta live. Mikey G63 says Hawk to a Newsom. Yeah, listen, unfortunately, protesting pays, but you're right. They have a right to protest. Even though the stuff that they spew is hateful, it's offensive, it's annoying, they have a right to do it. Just tired of hearing them. I can't believe anyone follows their nonsense, but they do.
Oh yeah, it's total. But just real quick, I like this. Just I forgot about Relly Rel. This is Relly Rel talking crap about the podcast. Yeah, listen to this.
Nigga right here, this nigga right here put out I should be arrested for 6 crimes, and then they sent the U.S. Marshals to my crib and locked me up for the 6 crimes that he posted on his fucking podcast.
Yeah, bitch on the big.
Yeah.
I gotta love it, the noodle arms. I gotta love a guy like that. Thinks he's tough, because
Yes.
he challenges police officers that are not allowed to fight back, that they have to stand there and take it. But meanwhile, that guy couldn't find his way out of a paper bag. Look at him.
Hysterical. Yeah, hysterical.
Anybody has to tell you that, I would do this, and they don't know how to fight. Yeah, okay, just keep talking.
He's like, he posted I should be locked up for the 6 crimes, and the U.S. Marshals came and locked me up.
Yeah.
So what he did was he was doing his protest and walking in the street, but what he did was he ripped a windshield wiper off of a cop car, and so I listed all the violations that he should have been locked up for, and then they locked him up for it. So he was pissed. So, but now he don't mess with me no more. He used to send me nasty messages all the time.
I remember he put the video up of us talking or something. And something pissed him off. It was hilarious. Rel, keep us entertained, brother.
Yeah, but that's the thing. And sorry, Marlon, what are you saying?
No, I'm saying he should come join the chat.
He should. Yeah, we should get Relly. Actually, we should have him on the podcast, Relly. We should pick.
I would love to have him on. That'd be hilarious.
Yeah. I think he only knows how to chant, though.
Like, all right, listen, this is not going to be rehearsed. We're gonna have an actual conversation. Let's see what you can do.
Yeah, hysterical. So this also comes out this week too, and I think this is another free speech issue, right? Because during COVID, I mean, I was like completely censored. I was thrown off of multiple platforms. I was being called a criminal. I was being investigated for asking questions. So listen to what comes out now. This is the importance of free speech, right? Because we weren't allowed to push back at the mainstream media narrative. We weren't allowed to ask questions of medical doctors, even though there were many medical doctors who had the same questions we did. So now, 5 years removed, listen to what's coming out. I mean, and this is the importance of free speech. Listen to this.
Dr. Menares, I agree with you completely that we need to restore trust in public health. But in order to do so, we have to have a discussion about the actual science, and we can't have discussions. This, is about all vaccines are good, all vaccines are bad. This is about specific vaccines. It's about specific age groups. It's about specific policies. Does the COVID vaccine prevent transmission?
The COVID vaccine can reduce viral load in individuals who are
Does it prevent transmission?
When you have reduced viral load, you will have reduced transmission.
But in other words, it doesn't prevent transmission. You can still transmit the virus if you've had the vaccine. In fact, there's been reduced ability to interfere with transmission over time. And what we've found is the most recent one since Omicron is down around 16% reduction, if there is a reduction. Does the COVID vaccine reduce hospitalization for children under 18?
It can.
It doesn't. The statistics are inconclusive, and the reason you can't prove that it does is there's so few people under 18 that go to the hospital. The numbers are extraordinarily small. There's like 76 million kids under 18 in our country. 183 died, and a few thousand went to the hospital in 2020 and 2021. And since then, the numbers have dropped precipitously, and the idea and the issue needs to be discussed. but the COVID vaccine is not reducing hospitalization. It's not statistically significant. Does the COVID vaccine reduce the rate of death for children under 18?
It can.
Once again, it can. That's a ridiculous answer. No, it doesn't. And there is no statistical evidence that it does reduce the death rate. These are statistics. We've looked at it. When they approved it, they had this discussion at the vaccine committee that we've been talking about. During the discussion, they acknowledged that there was no proof of reduction in hospitalization or in death. So what they did is they said, what can we use to try to make people take this vaccine? They came up with this. They said that if we give you a COVID vaccine, you make antibodies. So really the whole recommendation for having a COVID vaccine from 6 months up is not based on hospitalization data, not based on deaths. It's based on whether you make antibodies or not. And what people fail to see from this is I can inject you with a foreign protein every week and measure your antibodies. You'll make antibodies every time. It just means immunology work has nothing to do with whether you should get a vaccine every week. So when we're discussing the science here, we have to discuss what is the science in favor of giving a vaccine to a 6-month-old and what are the benefits from that? And there is no benefit of hospitalization or death. And then what would the risks of the vaccine be? We have large population studies of the risks of the vaccine in younger people. And it turns out that you don't see this as much if you look at the general population, but once you start isolating in by age group, which you have to do in COVID because there's such a disparity among age group, you find that there is a risk of myocarditis, a significant event. It's somewhere between 6 and 8 in 10,000. But that's much greater than the risk of hospitalization or death, which are not even measurable because they're so small.
It's insane. So that's the importance of free speech, right? That Rand Paul shouldn't just be able to ask that question because he's elected. You should be able to ask these questions. These questions aren't revolutionary that he's asking. These were questions that were being asked on day one that weren't answered. And now here we are 5 years later, and you're getting the answers to those questions after being considered a domestic terrorist, white supremacist, right-wing, Proud Boy, right-wing Christian extremist. After being labeled all of those things by your own government and your police departments, now you're hearing the answers to those questions. And you know why they were labeling you all that stuff? Because they wanted to shut down your question. Because, in fact, the answers to those questions were absolutely horrible. And they weren't following the science.
Yeah. Well, this is the importance of freedom of speech, And again, the situation we're in is not, I mentioned after 9/11, but it's not too dissimilar from the scamdemic, where, I'm not too sure I recall government shutting down. Well, they kind of did, because social media was censoring people back then. But I remember there was a social stigma about kind of like even bringing up, arguing the points about why the medical experiment was even necessary and whether there was efficacy to the medical experiment. But kind of forgot my train of thought here, but yeah, I said before that the same people who wanted to kind of keep us locked up are the same people who are okay with this now, and it's just not right. And people should look back at how bad things were there and the mistakes that were made there, so we don't go through it again.
Well, I think you made some great points. I think there's similarities to what's happened during COVID to kind of post 9/11. But I think right now it was far worse because the whole world is tied to social media in the digital era. Back, in the close proximity to 9/11, social media started to become prominent in life, but it was not everything was weaved and tied into social media and tied into digital. Everything we do now is digital, including your mail. People barely get any mail at this point. It's pretty much paperless. So everything is tied into digitally. So the benefit of that is expand and communicate a lot more information. But the negative aspect of that is that politicians are trying to put much more closure on that because there is more communication. And communication is powerful. And I think that the politicians want to put opposition to that because the communication gives the public a lot more power than it does the politicians because things could be challenged immediately. As soon as a bill comes out, some type of proposal, some information, it can be challenged immediately and challenged by intelligent people. and not necessarily just intelligent people, but people with experience, people with knowledge and wisdom. And that's really what the problem is. And media is a powerful tool. And now we have two forms of media, right? We have mainstream media, which is exactly what we heard on Sal Greco's show from Grace. And we have puff pieces, and we have people that are in line with the media to capture things in a certain way. But we also have opinionated media, which is this, a podcast. People like PBD, people like Candace Owen that are political commentators, that are media personalities that give out their opinion. And we have that in this entire world now. We have, ready for this? I don't want to shock John Shell and Kaz Daughtry and people with weak egos. We have police officers that retire from the NYPD or other police departments giving their opinion on policing. Is anyone shocked here? So if they put with this attack on free speech, if they stop free speech, they're going to stop the messaging. And the messaging is from real people. That's what this is. Real people equals truth. And that's what they're fighting, the truth. And I think we've now exposed with COVID and after COVID that the mainstream media, the politicians really have been lying to us this entire time. And it's real people fighting back with the truth. The truth is a powerful tool. The more and more that we do this podcast, the more and more that we talk to people, and really we've become in this offensive in support of police department and showing how politics has affected the entire profession, that the truth is a scary thing. And if we look back what happened during COVID, most of it was not truthful. It was just a complete lie.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. The whole thing is disgusting. And Marlon still remains terminated non-disciplinary. I forget who's asking. He's asking, why didn't myself and Marlon go back to the job? So what you guys did is you said that we had to sign away our rights prior to you even accepting us to even consider that we could reapply, and we had to sign away our rights to back pay was one of the forms, and our rights to our civil rights, and nobody could explain exactly what that meant. So we had to sign away our rights, and then you guys would say whether or not you would take us. Now, it's about a 3-month process to get reinstated. I only in a year, I only had about 2 weeks, so I wasn't eligible for it. And on top of that, I was out on media, mainstream media, social media, critiquing the mayor and his decision the entire time. So I knew that I wasn't one of those people. So why the hell would I sign away my rights to do that and my right to back pay and all that? And it was the same true for Marlon and the rest of us. And it was all based on lies, and it was all based on it was not only was it religious discrimination, it was honestly, it was weaponized against the poor and the middle class. They pushed down on us. So that was that. And it was a horrible time, and we're still in it because there's still lies. So this comes out yesterday as well as City. NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch advances disciplinary case against officers in Wynn Rosario shooting. So that was we showed you the body camera where the male attacked the officers with a set of knives, and they shot him with a taser. The taser, he was able to rip the taser off. The mother was standing in front of him, and then ultimately he got to the point where he was able to grab the scissors again and charge the officers. The officers discharged their weapon on him, and ultimately Wynn Rosario lost his life as a result of that shooting. What do you guys think about this? I mean, obviously CCRB says he should be fired. They found him guilty. I'm reading that the board found him guilty, not the CCRB investigators. So that the board is saying that he should be terminated, that these two officers should be terminated. What do you think is going to be the outcome of the department trial? A lot of people are celebrating this online, saying this is Jessica Tisch signaling that she's going to agree with the decision of the CCRB.
I think this is a tough one because the question is who's going to be the next PC. If it's Jessica Tisch, I think there's a chance that she may, not, agree with, that they're not going to terminate these cops. Depending on if it's a new PC, I think there's a strong likelihood that these guys are they may not terminate them, but they'll force them to resign. And I think it's a shame, because I watched that video, and I think that, there's not much they could have done, considering, as soon as they got there, the kid is picking up a scissors coming after them. But we said yesterday that Tish doesn't want to rock the boat. Very few people in the city, in city government and our country's government, to be honest, at this point, want to rock the boat. And by not rocking the boat, you're not making the tough decisions that you should for the health of the long-term health of the in this case the city and the NYPD, and we're seeing them essentially, by doing that, kicking the can down the road. And that's exactly what she did here. You're kicking the can down to whoever's going to be the PC again. And what she's saying here is, I don't want to rock the boat as I'm walking out the door, because that may ruin my my political chances or my connections later. And this is going to be the next PC's problem, and this is a major issue for the department, because we talked about all the issues we talked about are not new issues. They've just, they're just compounded right now. And it's decades and years and decades of malfeasance and not solving big problems when they should have, that are now ballooning into even larger problems. And it's all coming to a head. And in this case, she's doing the same thing that, in a lot of ways her predecessors did, kicking the can down the road to solving it when she's not there, or being somebody else's problem when she's not in charge. And it's not fair to the job nor the city.
So in my opinion, that Commissioner Tish should dismiss this case immediately, and she should not allow this case to even enter the trial room at the administrative trial for the NYPD. And here's why. In my opinion, this is outside the purview of the CCRB, and I think that there's enough oversight, and this has been investigated already. I think the CCRB, again, is overreaching, just as we've seen in a good comparison to the Kawasaki Trower case. If I'm saying his name right or wrong, I apologize. But we've went over that case numerous times. So I see some people in the chat here making different comments about the tactics. We're way past that. Let's not talk about the tactics. Let's talk about the CCRB purview. Their purview is this force of abuse? Is this abuse of authority, discourtesy, or offensive language? Or is this now racial profiling? There's absolutely no racial profiling to this incident at all. There's no offensive language or discourtesy. And there's no abuse of authority. They had the authority to be there. They were called to be there. Those police officers were faced with a dangerous situation. Now the question is, was this force applied appropriately or not? That is something that is investigated by FID, which is your Firearms Investigative Division by the NYPD, which has much more experience investigations and necessary for these type of incidents than the CCRB. I think CCRB is reaching outside their purview, and they should stay in their lane. It's really shocking also. I read that, John. It was shocking also that this was decided upon from the board. And this really shows you the state of affairs that the CCRB is in. Now, how will this administrative trial play out? CCRB will have their own attorney come to trial and battle the attorney for the cops in this case. And I think it's just completely outside their purview. Again, this was investigated by Force Investigation Division, the Internal Affairs, the police, and also the DA's office. And the police officers were found with no wrongdoing. But now the CCRB, to have an overreach, just shows their bias and disdain. It's completely outside their purview. There's too many angles for a police officer to fight and battle in situations. I mean, if you really nitpick, you could always find administrative errors. But was this force applied appropriately? Absolutely. And if Jessica Tish wants to send a message that she's actually the police commissioner, she should suspend this case immediately and not allow this case to even enter and just say it's dismissed. That's it. That's the only thing that would show. I don't care if she's going to be the PC for the next mayor or not. This should be dismissed immediately to show prudence and to show support. And for the morale of the police department, this has to be suspended immediately. The fact that this is going to be allowed into a CCRB is a terrible case and puts the police officers, it disarms them and it puts them on guard, and it puts them more vulnerable than they are already, and they're completely under attack. So, again, These guys did absolutely nothing wrong. Are there questions we could talk about to get better tactics? Absolutely. But they were put in a vulnerable situation. Once you're in someone's house, it's their domain. They know that house. You do not know the nomenclature. They were put in a position where they were getting little information from the family. The perpetrator ran into the kitchen, brandished a scissor, what looked like a knife. And if you look at that real quick, it looks like a knife. Turns out to be a scissor. Either way, those police officers were put in a vulnerable position, and they did what they had to do. And unfortunately, people don't want to hear this. We shoot people because sometimes they have to be shot. And that is to save the lives of others and save the lives of the police officers. We do not shoot people arbitrarily, and we shoot people to stop a threat and to save lives. So sometimes, as scary and as vile as people may find it, it's a necessary thing. And the fact that this could potentially enter an administrative trial, and Marlon, you validated yesterday on Sal Greco's show, if you haven't watched, where he talks about the kangaroo court. These police officers will be put to the test at a kangaroo court and not tried fairly. Jessica Tisch, my message is, if you want support from the police department, show a message to the CCRB that they need to do better and stay in their lane and follow their purview. Dismiss this case immediately.
Yeah, no, I think she's totally full of shit. I agree with Marlon. I don't think she wants to rock the boat. If she's gonna make a swift decision on it, she should do it already. You know, I don't knock her getting the trial, like having the trial go and let it happen. But the bottom line is, Force Investigation Division investigated this. They're trained investigators in use of force incidents. They deemed that the shooting's fine. They deemed the shooting was good. It was within the law. The DA's office also investigated it. They deemed it was in the law. Who gives a shit what the CCRB has to say about the shooting? Honestly, like, who are they? What are they? Like, they're just an agency looking to survive. They don't get to say, oh, well, the DA and the FID is wrong. No, sorry. No, you don't know what you're talking about. Why don't you sit down, rookie? Sit down and investigate when a cop curses at someone and put the penalties in there. You know, take that out of there. So, I mean, honestly, the fact that we're going to sit over this and these cops are going to sit there and worried if they're going to be terminated or forced to lose the job is a disgrace. It's a weakening of all cops. It makes every cop go out there and hesitate. It makes cops think twice about doing their job. And you could just see in the chat people saying they should have left, they should have retreated. And ultimately, who gets affected? The people that we serve, right? The public. So at the end of the day, she wanted to be the police commissioner. I believe that she does want some type of elected office later on. So then show us that you're a leader and you're capable of standing up to criticism, and you don't need a friendly press from the right and from the left. Obviously, the left's going to flip out if she says that not to get that these officers shouldn't be terminated or they should be allowed to keep their job. So you're right, Marlon. Is she going to kick the can down the road? Maybe. I lean further. If I'm betting, I'm saying she's either kicking the can down the road or she's going to terminate them swiftly. And, you know, I don't think she's going to make a swift decision to say, yeah, absolutely not. We're not doing that but she should. You could prove us wrong and you could do that. You could do that and say, you know what? My FID investigated it. Force Investigations investigated it. They found nothing wrong. The DA found nothing wrong. These cops did nothing wrong. And they're going back out on patrol where they belong. Don't charge a police officer with a knife.
John, I know what you're saying, but I really do believe that, and I believe that this case should be dismissed immediately. I don't think it should be allowed to enter the administrative trial because I think the police officers faced enough oversight, enough criticism already by all the parameters that are necessary. That's FID, which is your Force Investigation Division, your Internal Affairs Bureau, the DA's office, DOI. There's enough investigation, enough probes here, and could be a federal case also. But for CCRB to be involved, I believe it's outside their purview. And I think they should stay in their lane. I think this would be a message that you have nothing to do with this and you need to stay in your lane. And CCRB is meant for minor cases, not for major cases. And they need to know where to stay in their lane. I think that's the problem. If we allow them into the trial, and if they do, and I don't trust this administrative trial because I've been there. If they do find these police officers guilty, could Jessica Tisch have the forthwith in her to actually go against the grain? And when Marlon says that, I don't think so. So it would take extreme amount of power now, and that would send the message, do not even allow their attorneys in this courtroom. And I've seen the attorneys that the CCRB hire. They're just as bad as their investigators.
Yeah. I don't even know why this is being entertained. You know, it's like, I mean, seriously, are we gonna? The fact that cops now are you're going on trial for taking police enforcement I cannot believe that we're here. You know, I just can't believe we're here. But you know, I see we have like a steady audience of haters that constantly come on here and make comments, and we appreciate our haters, you know, because again, like we said, we believe in an open discussion, and you know, you guys are welcome to hate, you know. But my question is my thing is you guys who make these comments, these comments reflect low information, and you guys are the ones still on the job right now. You know, we're not on the job. Okay. When you like, there was a question asked about why me and John aren't back. And, you know, I don't even like talking about my situation anymore to cops because I have to explain it all. And it surprises me that how so many of them are low information when this just didn't happen to me and John and you know, Eric's situation and then Sal's. It's happening to all of you right now. And the fact that you don't know about any of this is just mind-boggling to me. And the fact that the steady stream of haters that we get come on here and they criticize us. It's like I just don't understand for your sake, because you see things like what's happening to these cops right now. These guys are getting absolutely railroaded. Okay. And it's not, remember, we're not there anymore. It's you guys that are facing this. So you should educate yourself about what's happening in the department and doing things like going to the trial room and asking questions and following up on what they're doing to you, because it may not be you today, but it's going to be you tomorrow. Eventually it's going to get to you tomorrow. And you need to, the only way we're going to stop all this stuff from happening is if you guys are aware of it and you press the unions to do their job, and you press the department to change things. Otherwise, more cops are going to get railroaded like these guys are right now.
All right, so now, you know, we take the criticism, and now it's time to give some criticism. All right, here we go. Get the comments ready. Get your keyboards ready. All right, people. So,
as James Belushi said in The Principal, my turn.
So, taxpayer funds. This is where, you know, New York's taking a lot of money out in taxes from you guys, right? Taking a lot of money from your check. New York City, whether you live in the city or you don't. But this video was created using your funds. Taxpayer funded self-promotion video. And just so you're aware, John, I don't stalk your social media like you do mine. People just send me these videos because you guys consistently make fools of yourself and go out there and try to act like you're Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin and think that people actually like you. But they don't. They really don't. Trust me, they don't. You know, you get some rookies fooled some of the time. So this comes out online. Here we go. This is the video made promoting Chief of Department John Shell that he posted on his own social media.
Listen, good job tonight, but remember, the mayor's favorite number is 98. Go 98. So I get ready.
To the next level. The questions you're asking, are you going to buy a moped? Are you going to start? That's what it sounds like to me. What happened? You wanted to leave Kaz Daughtry at home today?
Yeah, sometimes he's a hindrance on me.
Yeah, usually. It's good to have you one-on-one.
Happy 72nd birthday.
Let me ask you. All right, there we you go.
2,500 police officers are along this parade route.
No, I was not. I was not. Where is this? Where's 46?
Look at my radio. See my phone. I never seen it.
What block are you on?
Mars and something.
You never know where you are.
I have no idea.
If you want to come out and exercise your First Amendment, do so. And we will protect you. We will give you that fundamental right. But you will not have the right to cause chaos in the city. As of right now, this campus is secure by NYPD personnel. This is how we get it done.
You swim? You probably got a private pool.
Yeah, a kitty one.
It's a nice thing to see someone get a second chance and make it. It's a wonderful thing. But there comes a point in time where you have to realize that's not going to work, and we got to remove people off our streets that are hurting our community.
There's chili flavored Doritos under that seat. Between my dogs and my sons live downstairs in the basement, and when they come up thinking it's a la carte upstairs in my house, it becomes stressful for me. And there's a squatter issue in my house also. I'm not paying rent on time. So that's my stressful time every morning.
I am John Charlie, the Chief Patrol.
Will you fight and tell our enemy that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
That's
What'd
awesome.
you guys think?
I love it. The music in the beginning was like got me fist pumping on there. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I love that Braveheart meme. Whoever did that Braveheart meme, good on you. Because I'm looking at it now like, damn, I should have done that. Didn't I?
I thought they were gonna do Wolf of Wall Street. We ain't going anywhere.
Yeah. yeah. In a lot of ways, I see stuff that shows me John in another reality. John Child could have been fun to be your boss.
Oh yeah.
It's just no. I see because I see a lot of these things that maybe it's just because the camera's there now, but like you look at a lot of the past chief of departments, some guys who look like they couldn't even take a joke next to them. So, but I think the problem has always been that, and I think the reason why John Chell, came at you guys, and we've talked about it many times how we think that a lot of the pushback, including what's his name, all cops are woke, that we think that all comes from the top, and I think it's because John Chell knows that the criticisms we have are correct, and I think that he knows in another reality he could have been great for the cops, but in this reality, when he's buddies with Eric Adams and he's part of the Crumbs crew and the cronyism that has come out of 1PP and all the bad policies, that he knows we're right about our criticisms. So I think it's a shame.
Spot on, brother. Spot on. Listen, 2 hours and 42 minutes into it. It's your Friday roundtable. I think it's a hell of a show. We covered a lot of content here. If you haven't, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you, friends and listeners. We appreciate the engagement. Let's keep the engagement going. And, of course, we'll be back Monday, as you know it. And a packed week, as always. Tuesday, Sal Greco show. Tuesday night, 10-4 Tavern. Wednesday, we'll be back again. Always with an interview. And then Wednesday night is Executive Perspective. So their shows are on the road. And, John, I'll let you introduce what we need to promote for people to get some other subscribership. So, John, go ahead. Take it away, brother.
Oh, sure. So I think we spoke about it. I think we spoke about it earlier a few weeks ago. They put a post out. So if you go over, we redid our website, www.thefinestunfiltered.com. So if you go over there and subscribe, we're going to be dropping a weekly newsletter that's going to encompass all of New York City crime and all NYPD news. That should be coming out on Mondays in the evening. But if you check out our website, and you go over there and subscribe, we would appreciate it. Again, www.thefinestunfiltered.com. And then Mondays, we'll be dropping a newsletter. We'll be dropping articles during the week. And it'll basically be a one-stop shop for anything related to NYPD news or New York City crime. So you're not going to have to search all of the media. And we're going to accredit those who did the work. Unlike what the New York Post and the Daily News and the City do to us, we're actually going to do the opposite. We're going to credit them with the work. We're going to give us a little small blurb, say who wrote the story, where it is, with a link to their articles. So you don't need to fish around to see all the crime-related data that's coming out in New York City, as well as that week's CompStat will be in the notes as well. Plus anything related around the podcast will be in there. So, yeah, check it out. You guys will be able to comment on that as well. And so we're going to be getting into the digital print media sphere as well. So, check that out when you guys get time. Like I said, it won't be the newsletter won't be up until Monday, though. There's a version of it up right now, and it's about what it's going to look like, but it doesn't have all the data. And then going forward from this point on, you won't see that next week's newsletter until that Monday happens. And, like I said, but you will see some articles throughout the week. And I think it's just a good source of data. You could also access our YouTube through there and anything else. So check that out when you guys get time. I'm excited about it. I know everybody else is. And for any of you guys that have any issues that you're dealing with in your command-related detail, if there's evidence, if there's proof of it, and you want to get anonymous, you could always email us info@thefinestunfiltered.com. You could send us photos, whatever it is. Maybe your precinct's running 2 cars, 3 cars. You want us to put that out there. We would be willing to do that. We're also willing to take guest articles as well as anonymous articles. That's not to say that everything you send us will put out on in our media. We'll vet it. We'll properly vet it. If it's relevant to the conversation, we'll put it out. We're not going to use it to be a tool to slander your sergeant or your lieutenant. If it's deservingly so, then yeah, absolutely. We'll put something out in relation to it, or you want to weigh in on what's actually happening and giving a more nuanced opinion, we'll allow that as well. So check us out, info@thefinestunfiltered.com. Any thoughts, suggestions, whatever you want to do. And then subscribe to the newsletter at thefinestunfiltered.com. You go down to the bottom of that website. You can check it out. You can pick it apart. I know a couple of people in here that are going to be the biggest fans of it already. Juju, a lot of other people. You guys are going to be clicking on that nonstop. And so we appreciate that. We appreciate it. Like we said, because who was it? Eric Adams said it. All my haters become my waiters. Here, we don't agree with that. We say we love our haters, right? Because the more they hate, the more we grow.
Well, I say all the time, I love the hate because no one hates on you that's doing better than you. So with that newsletter, it's going to be broken down. You will get the crime stats for the week. You'll also get the episodes of the week, a little blurb and a synopsis of that. And of course, what news is going on in New York City. So as John said, you could transpose the information you get in a newsletter back to the podcast, back and forth. So please, just as you like and share and subscribe to the podcast, like, share, and subscribe also to the newsletter. It's going to be a lot of information, just one-stop information where you get all that access and coincide with the episodes. With that being said, what's unique about this podcast is we encourage engagement from our friends and listeners. We want you involved in the conversation. It helps a lot. Same thing goes for the newsletter. There is a caption there for you to comment. We want your engagement, and as we're very approachable and accessible, just email us any information. And I think we prove credibility and trust at this point. John and I and the entire Finest Unfiltered have built this together, but John and I have started this now 3 years ago. And in those 3 years, we have never exposed anyone's source or anyone's identity. So that can be trusted. And I think we've proven that at this point. So if you do leave a comment about some detailed information or some atrocity that's going on, please do. And if there's anything, with that being said, I just want to say also, if there's something positive going on with the police department or just something you've had experience with the job or outside the police or anything, if something positive, leave that information, leave those comments also. So we don't want it to be just something negative, but if there's something someone did something great, or please put that in there. We appreciate it. The engagement is what's important. With that being said, Marlon, if you want to close it with any thoughts, we're almost at 3 hours. Awesome Friday roundtable. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, guys, go sign up for the newsletter. We're gonna be doing big things with that. But other than that, Thank you for joining us today, and hope you all have a great weekend, including and especially to our haters. You guys, I hope you rest your fingers, because we need those fingers like strong and relaxed and ready to go on Monday. So have a great weekend.
Yeah, Juju says trusted till we get hacked. Don't worry, we already planned for that. So opening stages, but the security was more important than the aesthetics of it. But like I said, we're gonna keep growing. So yeah, guys, have a great weekend, everybody. We're gonna leave you with just thoughts to ponder over the weekend. So everybody, find some filtered. We'll be back at you Monday morning. Here we go.
Trucks parked illegally, taking up valuable parking spaces from residents. Well, this past week, there was a big operation in the Bronx to address the issue. Deputy Mayor for Public Safety, Kaz Daughtry, joins us now with more on the issue. Deputy Mayor, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So why did you go to the Bronx, and tell me, what did you guys exactly do?
Yes, thanks, Dean, for the question. So the reason why I went to the Bronx is that just so your viewers know, I constantly, my team constantly monitors the comments on my social media for any quality of life issues. And it just so happened to be that the comments from my social media, as well as emails and complaints that people have told me when I travel throughout the city, that the Bronx, in certain areas of the Bronx, that there were a bunch of abandoned vehicles, derelict vehicles, plates that don't match the vehicles. I'm not sure how they figured that out, but they did some good detective work.
Mm-hmm.
And it just so happened when I drove, I went personally to go up there with my team, and as I drove through the area in the Bronx, I seen it, witnessed it with my own eyes, and then I contacted the community link team as well as the sheriff's department and told the guys that we got to get up there. We got to restore the quality of life back to the residents in the Bronx, and especially this neighborhood. And
Yeah.
I think that I think they towed over 35 to 40 vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the areas was along Webster Avenue, and that's a big problem near Gun Hill Road, sometimes between Gun Hill and 233rd. But you not only removed cars, but there were campers and all sorts of vehicles there.
Yep, and the campers, and we want to be a little empathetic to the folks that are in the campers, because those campers that you're talking about, that we noticed that there was folks that were living inside of there. They weren't there at the time of the when we were there, but we had our Department of Homeless Services team out there to offer wraparound services. Nobody should be living in those campers. They didn't have air conditioning in there, and the people, according to the residents, they said people have been living in those campers throughout the summer, and nobody should be living in those type of conditions here in the city, where we have shelters for everybody that needs a shelter here. So we had our Department of Homeless Services team up there ready to give wraparound services to the folks that was inside of that camper. Like I said before, there was nobody inside of the camper. However, they did leave their card with residents in that on that block. So when the people did come back, that we can offer them wraparound services and let them know where their camper is at.
Now, another big issue, and a lot of times when you do these sort of operations, some people like it, they call for the help. Others think it's a little too aggressive. But one of the big issues, these mobile car washes that are set up in vans. You guys towed a lot of those vans out of that area as well that were doing these car washes.
Top 5 quality of life complaint in the city, especially in the Bronx and up in Washington Heights, are the mobile legal car washes. Number one, they leave those vans there. They don't have, they're not registered, they're not insured, and they have these propane tanks inside of the vans. They have these huge water coolers in there, and folks are just, Dean, think about this. I think you're from the Bronx, so
I'm a Bronx boy. Yeah.
Yes, you are a Bronx boy, and can you imagine coming home from a hard day at work, whether it be 5 o'clock in the afternoon, whether it be 10, 11 o'clock at night, and you're literally driving around in circles trying to find the closest parking spot to your building, your apartment building, your house, and you see these same derelict vans, these same vans that are used for these mobile car washes or these derelict vehicles parked there, and you're saying to yourself, these vehicles are parked there all the time. I wish I can, somebody would do something about this so I can get a parking spot. And people have said they've been complaining to 311 a lot, in regards to some of these vehicles that we've towed. And the NYPD, the Sheriff's Department, Department of Sanitation, they're out there doing this. They get a lot of complaints for these derelict vehicles. They're out there working aggressively hard. You know, it's my job as a deputy mayor for public safety to make sure that we are letting New Yorkers know exactly what the team is doing, what this administration is doing when it comes to the quality of life. But we got a lot, just like you said, there was a couple of naysayers on us. We got also people that were jumping for joy. I think I put on my social media where, as I was doing a video and updating New Yorkers of exactly what we were doing up in the Bronx, I had about 5 or 6 ladies that came over to us and was screaming, jumping up and down, saying that they got parking. They were happy because the city is finally, you know, that somebody's answering their calls and letting them know that we're out here, you know, for them.
All right. I mean, and you said you will continue to do these sort of operations. I want to switch gears very quickly. Also, recently you participated in a fashion show. What was that about? It looks like you had fun. You got a lot of heat about it on social media. You know, what was that about?
Listen, it's for charity. Yeah, the fashion show is for charity. And Dean, come on, just look at this face here. This face is made for fashion, Dean. You know, I had a great time. Shout out to Muggsy McFly for letting me wear that fur coat, the jeans. Dean, come on, Deputy Mayor was on fire that night, walking down the runway. I had everybody's heads turning. I'm still getting, I would call it heat, but people were surprised that I actually did that. And I'm not the type of your ordinary deputy mayor that sits behind a desk. This team is out there. We're out there, and it was it was Fashion Week #1. Listen, I ain't gotta be honest with you. I didn't think I was gonna actually walk down the runway with that with the fur jacket on, but it was fire. Okay. Yo, shout out to Muggsy McFly for letting me rock that. But it was for charity, and I had a good time. You know, I'm just letting people know I'm just a regular person, just like them.
All right. Well, if any folks have complaints, let's go back to the vehicles. Just, you know, reach out to Kaz or City Hall, and also call 311. Deputy Mayor for Public Safety, Kaz Daughtry, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dean.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?